Hi, this is Mad Squirrel here with another Between Two Nuts with MegaJetty. He goes by MJ1 Media, but he used to
Hmm.
go by MegaJetty 1.
In a
But
way, I still am.
yeah, we still call him MegaJetty, but
Yeah.
he is your eclectic everything. So we're talking right now. We just started and we're like, we should probably record. We've tried, this is our second attempt because the first attempt there was some major audio issues, but here we are. We're doing it.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I think
Um,
I think the way you said it was everything on my end recorded, but everything on your end didn't. Am
yeah,
I right?
which is
Wow.
wild. But
That
I
is
had, I was
that
like,
is a problem.
because I'd say something and then you would go on for a while. And then I was like, why the hell is my audio not there? Because I was showing that it was recording my audio before. So something happened. I did a bunch of upgrades on it since then. And I'm like, it's fine now.
Oh,
But
well, that's good.
I don't
But
know.
if you want to re-ask any questions, by all means.
Right. We'll just, it's been a little bit since because, it's been some time. I had
Hmm.
a lot of weird stuff. 2021, we were just talking about this year and how it's been one of those years where there's just shortages. There's stuff that's changed this summer. It's made things a little bit more complicated. Um, you just had your Italian festival
Yeah.
and had the pizza, the special pizza that they only
Oh yeah.
serve at the festival. So you got a nice double dose of that, which is
Hmm.
good. How
Nico's
long is
Pizza. I really wish they would just make their own restaurant because they're that good.
so? How do you pronounce? How do you I guess spell Miko's Pizza? Is it
Nico.
Nico's? That sounds familiar. I
Yeah.
don't. I bet you there. I wonder, but they don't have a restaurant, so it's only at like I guess
Yeah, and
festivals
big
or.
events. Like one year I had them at the Italian festival, and then when there was like an Oktoberfest over by the local racetrack,
Hmm.
I noticed them there, and I was like, wow. Then I get a second Nico's Pizza in that year. So
Oh my gosh! When it's
yeah.
like a really good pizza, it's worth it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
But I guess that's why they only do like, events and not have an actual restaurant. That way that's how demanded they are.
wow. Well, at least they make their money. I'll tell you that right now.
Mhm.
Pizzerias, like, it's good money if you get it going and you do it right, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of, there was actually this one pizza place that my stepdad and I tried. It was a local establishment, but we had only just discovered it like in the past month or so. It's
Hmm.
called Niera's Pizza. It's like see, we live in like the south side area. It was in the Green Ridge area. So we went to try it, and it turns out that because I mean, we passed by it, the place looks nice on the outside. You wonder if such a place can have good pizza on the inside.
Right.
It matches the outside on the inside.
So for those who don't know, what state are you in? You're on the East Coast, but
Yeah,
what's
I'm in Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of the American remake of The Office.
yeah, so that way for context of the areas in case anybody lives nearby, they know, oh, that's where that pizzeria is. Okay. But
Hmm.
also too, if they see you out there, just say hi to Mega Jetty. He's always out there
Yeah,
chilling.
yeah, and if anyone wants to say hello to me that I'm familiar with, I will treat you to pizza.
You're like, I know a good place.
Hmm. I know
I know,
several places,
right,
but one of them is actually probably the cheapest one. It's
right.
called Pizza by Papa's. They
Oh,
have this sort of personal pan size, but that's like
oh,
the only size they ever sell. It's like this big, this wide, and
holy
they
shit.
actually it's like you can order a whole tray for just one person, and then
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, I whenever me and my stepdad need it or want to go to Pizza by Papa's, we would order two trays, one for him, one for me.
Oh, man. I love pizza.
And
It
it's
doesn't
next to
always
a comic
love
book
me,
shop.
but I love pizza. Pizza's a
And the
big
fact
thing.
and the fact that Pizza by Papa's is next to a comic book shop added
Oh,
extra fun.
yeah. You could just like grab your pizza. Oh, accidentally next door to the comic book place. Oh,
Hmm.
gotta go ahead. I
Yeah.
like I like it when we have a lot of local places here. We're in South Texas, but there's a lot of like local mom and pop
Mm.
comic book stores and collector places, and it's really
Oh,
cool. And they're
okay.
like the ones that like they have like places where you can bring your food and eat inside the comic book store. Not all of them still do that, but there's a few
Hmm.
here that allow that, so you can go take your lunch, eat there, and then check out products and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
oh, I miss those days though, spending like the whole Saturday inside the store,
Yeah.
and
And
that's just yeah.
I definitely miss Blockbuster because
Hmm.
I remember as a kid going there a lot, renting movies. Most of the time, I wanted to buy the movies.
Right.
but obviously couldn't have that. Sometimes we would get lucky and do that. But
I
yeah, I mean
remember those sales they used to have, like the 3 for 10 or 3 for $20. Like you could buy 3
wow.
movies that were previously
Yeah,
used. Oh my God, that was like the best sale ever because you
yeah,
could buy like new releases that way too.
yeah. And it was because I missed, those Blockbuster days. I modeled my logo after the Blockbuster logo. And you
Yeah,
can actually thank Fanzine for that. He posted this image of a Blockbuster, and I was like, he gave me such nostalgic memories, and then that inspired me.
yeah, I like your logo. It looks really good. Then you did a fall logo recently too, so
Yeah, that's what I
changing
do.
it
I
up.
My logo is basically the Blockbuster ticket, but with MJ1 Media written on it. And then there's of course me wearing my Cobra Kai jacket
Hmm.
right in front of it, so that way people know the face behind MJ1 Media. But
Yeah,
ev- but
looks good.
originally I did have like a just a plain black background. But
Hmm.
now during like certain holidays, I would like, for example, it started in July actually. I put an American flag behind my logo so that way, to celebrate the 4th of July.
Right.
And then this past month, in September, because of the Italian festival, I put the American Italian flag so that
Hmm.
way it would celebrate the holiday.
I think
And
it's a really big deal, like on the East Coast, like or in Chicago and places like that. But it's
yeah,
a big deal for that. A
anyone
lot of
who
people
loves
don't
Italian
realize it,
food.
you know.
But yeah, now that it's like the season of Halloween,
Hmm.
I was about to go back to the plain black logo, but then I realized some black logos tend to have orange pumpkin design, so go for that.
Right. And honestly, like, are you gonna? So, what do you got? What are your plans for Halloween this year? Because that's a big question.
Well,
And
since I didn't have much of a Halloween last year, I'm
right.
thinking I'm just gonna go out as Cobra Kai in my red leather jacket.
Oh, badass. So you are gonna? Are you gonna go trick or treating?
Well, I don't know about trick or treating, but I'm definitely gonna go walking out showing off.
Do it. And like we were talking about this because this is the first year. Like last year, obviously that was a wash. This year is
Yeah,
almost a wash. I'll be honest with you because
yeah.
we're gonna give out. Like I ordered because when I was a kid, there was two different houses that I loved the most. The first
Oh,
house was the one that gave the big candy bars, right?
oh,
You know, the ones that were full size, and you're like,
yeah.
oh, I'm coming back here, you know. Anyway,
Mm,
and so there was that house, and then there was the cool house that had like little goodie bags that they put like, different, like they'd have candy in them, but they'd have like cool little pumpkin stuff or like spiders or gross stuff,
oh,
you know what
like
I mean,
little
like
toys and
treats.
such.
Yeah, they call them boo bags now.
Oh,
It's the same logic, so we're gonna make boo bags, and that's what we're
ah,
giving out. I had pre-ordered a lot of stuff for Halloween, but because we get a lot of little kids. But this year, I've heard that obviously I've seen it in the stores. I don't know how it is there. That's kind of the tie-in. What do your stores look like there in 2021 for Halloween? Do they have a lot of products on the shelves? Are you able to find stuff that maybe specific things that you guys are slowly kind of picking up for Halloween?
there actually is this one little Halloween like costume shop. I think it's open like all year long. It's like just at the edge of downtown Scranton, but before you reach the Green Ridge area. I went there years ago to get a costume, and
Mhm.
there was this one particular mask I saw that I just might go looking for if it's still if it's like at a decent price that I can afford. It was
What
like
it?
an Arnold Schwarzenegger head mask,
Oh,
but part of it showed metal.
oh, okay. So it's like his
Terminator.
Terminator from the Judgment. Is it from from
Yeah,
the second?
Judgment Day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find that mask, and if I can't find it at that store, I'll look on like Amazon or whatever. But I'm looking to get that. And
I
heck,
would be as proactive as you can getting that mask too,
oh,
because it's
if I can
crazy.
if I can get that, I will wear that with my Cobra Kai jacket.
Oh, that would be
It'll
badass. A
be the
nice crossover.
mashup.
Oh,
Terminator Cobra Kai.
see, I like that. Like right now, I'm like debating because I usually it's all about the kids, right?
Hmm.
But
But the
um,
adults got to have some fun too.
right, and Squirrel, he's going to be going because he found last year on clearance it was a Jason mask
Mm.
with the knife. It looks decent, he's happy, but he got it on sale. We found it somewhere. And this year though, I'm gonna. Uh-oh, MegaJetty has something. There it is. Oh, I remember. Did you ever have the glow in the dark one?
Never did. No.
Oh my gosh. If I find one, I'm gonna send it to you because I swear to God, it's the funnest thing ever. I love those masks. That looks
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good.
this isn't entirely authentic because we all know the Jason mask. It's like a yellowish, has more
Right.
holes, and it has red streaks.
Right.
Unless you're a fan of Part 5, which has blue streaks.
Right.
And
Yeah,
by
because I
the
mean, you could do that. You could easily put on some, you know what I mean? Like buy like the plastic paint
yeah,
and just, or spray paint, whatever you
yeah,
prefer. But I just, like, yeah,
and
I'm
of
like
course
morbid.
it needs a cut in the side.
Right. A little crack.
Yeah. I will
Like,
say this though, I do like the Part 5 mask, even though I understand why it's not popular because
right.
a lot of people didn't like Part 5. There was this one video by famous YouTuber Cinemassacre.
Oh, okay.
Um, Basically, he covered the entire Friday the 13th series, but he made a very good point about why Part 5 really is a good film. It kind of harkened back to the first one where it's not about Jason, even though Jason's presence is felt.
Right.
It's about a guy who, or a person who lost their child and is angry about it.
Right.
That's why they go killing.
The Jason
So,
story, where it started to where, well, it's ongoing, I guess.
yeah,
There's a lot to unpack in that. Like there's so much of that story that can be that's still like
yeah.
you're unraveling this very large storyline, and that's what I liked about the series,
Hmm.
when you actually add background. I know with the Nightmare on Elm Street they tried to go in that direction. It didn't work the same way. You
Yeah,
know, Jason just has that dramatic feel to it. I mean, you have your camp and all that crap that shows
yeah,
up and your blood and gore, but it's you can move Jason in the psychological direction easily and be good. It'll
yeah.
work.
Because I mean, there is a lot you could tell with the character. Because that's another thing too. I found out the director of the first, or the screen. I don't know if it was the director or the writer of the first film, but
Mhm.
he didn't like the series after part one because he didn't think that Jason should be a killer. He thought he should be the victim. So
I think that's in my opinion, I like the idea of doing that where you have kind of like it's an anti-hero essentially, or an anti-villain, whatever you want to
I will
call it.
say this: there is a way you could still do that and still keep the history of the movies.
Oh yeah.
You know how
Mhm.
Jason keeps hearing his mother's voice in his head?
Right.
Maybe her spirit is tormenting him and he's like attacking, thinking he's killing his mother
Right.
when it's really just ordinary people he's killing.
And I like that because that's where you kind of get the feel of they're going in that direction many times, where they're almost going there and then they kind of hesitate in the earlier films,
Yeah,
right?
because I
And
mean,
then
on one hand, you can look at it as like either the remake way or the supernatural way. You could do it
right,
the remake way where he basically did not die when he drowned in the 80s. He swam to shore but lived in the wild off of animals and let everyone, including his mother, think he was dead. But then when
right,
he saw her get beheaded, he's like he became a killer because he kind of felt guilty that he felt he
yeah,
could have saved her and didn't. But if instead you want to go the supernatural route,
right,
where he's actually a deadite revived by the Book of the Dead from the Evil Dead series, he was literally lurking under that lake the whole time. He just couldn't get out, but he was able to see his mother get decapitated, and that was like what gave him the strength to finally break free and get to the surface and become the killer we all know and love today.
right. And that's more of like what I think, in my opinion, like more people are drawn to is the paranormal side of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and I can agree because, there's so many like serial killer films now where they've, you know, with the oh geez. When you get into the Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street films, they're all a little bit of paranormal,
Yeah,
and even though there's realistic elements, in the end it becomes paranormal, or it kind of lines up in that direction and makes it more, in a sense, it's more fun in that way too,
yeah,
because then you don't know what's possible.
yeah.
Because, that opens the door to the unknown, and God knows what that could manifest in the long run. It's not
Yeah,
like
because I know that like in the early films when he was still technically alive before the whole Tommy Jarvis thing, they were trying to imply he was human because when in part
Mhm.
3 when she was trying to swing a knife or an axe at him, he's like backing away in fear. So on
Right.
one hand, he's still kind of human, but at the same time, there is a hint of supernatural.
Like the
maybe,
possessive, like being possessed in a sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe he was technically, you know, supernatural by that time, but he
Hmm.
didn't know his limits and he was a little afraid to risk them. But then when Tommy Jarvis killed him and then he got revived by a lightning bolt to the spear that was impaled into him, he
Hmm.
realized there were no limits to him, and that's why he became less afraid and more of a monster.
Yeah, I know that like the Calm Squirrel and Elder Scroll, because Elder Scroll is like, Calm Squirrel's trying to get the Elder Scroll up to date on all
Yeah.
horror. So that means
Ah,
classic to current. So last year they do a Halloween watch-a-thon every year. So they have
ooh,
like a list of films that they watch that, Elder Scroll's never seen. That's my
mhm.
eldest son. And they watched Jason Lives for Elder
Ah,
Scroll, his first time watching it. They just watched it a couple nights ago. And because of his work hours, they aren't able to always watch them together, but Comsquirrel's watching them regardless. But anyway,
mhm.
so he kind of liked it. He was like, "This is different." He goes, "But I really enjoyed it, like more than I thought I would, because it's
Yeah.
zombie Jason, right?" But it takes the story to another area. It kind of changes it up a little bit, where it kind of
Mhm.
needed something new added to the story that would kind of develop the character into this greater evil, essentially.
Yeah.
But
And I actually do have like several ideas of what I would do with Jason, if you don't mind me
go for it.
saying.
Tell
Okay.
me.
Well, one idea I did have was a way to bring back the groundedness of the story yet still keep the supernatural.
Right.
You have a bunch of campers going to Camp Crystal Lake. One of them, though, he's like this antisocial kid. He's a guy. It's a guy, of course. He's like he does see them as friends, you know, but he's like not connected to them as much as what he's really connected to. And so he wanders off knowing Jason's going to go after them first. So that's the,
Twisted.
I know it sounds twisted, but there's a reason for it.
Right,
This is the interesting part. The movie opens up where he's like turned on a video camera, like what we're doing,
right.
and it's looking at him, but it's also looking at the shrine to Pamela Voorhees' head. So he's like making a video recording right in Jason's shack, and he's going to explain what led up to this. And
Interesting.
then, and so, yeah, he chronicles how basically Jason's off killing his friends while he's doing this. And then we see the lead up, you know, we saw how him and his friends arrived. We see how he interacts with them. But then we see him wander off and make this recording, knowing they're being slaughtered as he's doing it,
Oh,
because
wow.
because he knew their fate was sealed the moment they arrived.
Right. He was
But
positioning everybody.
yeah, basically he is using them as a distraction so that he can make this just in case, so that he doesn't survive. But there's a reason why he's doing this in Jason's shack,
So it
because
wouldn't just be his mask. This would be his actual head with the mask still on it.
oh no, this is Pamela's head. Jason's still,
Oh,
yeah. But
sorry.
then
Had to
that's
clarify my
okay. That's
brain.
okay. But the thing is, he reveals why he's letting his friends die and why he's filming this thing in Jason's shack, waiting for Jason to come back to him.
Holy shit.
He is here to take back the body of his dead mother, Alice Hardy, from the first film.
Good God.
The girl, the actress, the character who survived the first film, beheaded Pamela, who only to die in the beginning of the second.
Right.
This guy is her son.
Mm.
Basically, the twist is this: she had a kid, but she was not certain she was going to be a good enough parent. So she left her son with her mother, and then she took up the counseling position at Camp Crystal Lake for the events of part one to see if she can care for other kids. And if she can, she knows she can take care of her own.
Oh,
So
that's a good twist. I
it
like
was
that.
sort of so yeah, part one was kind of like a rite of passage to motherhood for her. And then when she watched Pamela, found all her friends killed by Pamela, she had to kill Pamela to defend herself. And
Good
then
God.
there's going to be this one scene where that you didn't see in part two, where she's like talking on the phone with her mother, and she's telling her mother, I'm going to come by tomorrow to pick up my son. And then the grandmother puts the baby son on the phone, and then she can briefly talk to him and say, "I'm going to see you tomorrow, sweetie. Bye."
Oh
And
shit.
then of course we
Flashback.
know, like a retcon
Right.
flashback, and then we all see the scene where right to her, and then we know her fate, and then he pans the camera to the shrine, and you see laying right next to the shrine is the body of his mother with that thing still in her head. So it's like he came all this
Wow.
way to bring his mother home and give her the proper burial, because he cannot stand that Jason not only killed her and took her from him, but also is desecrating her body by using it to worship his dead mother.
So
So
basically, almost in a sense, recreating another Jason,
in a
just
way,
in a
but
way.
he's going against the actual Jason. So
Right.
it's like, so now after Jason has killed his friends, he's finished the recording, and then he stands up like with a machete of his own or whatever weapon he has, and he basically finishes the story to Jason, telling him everything, that I am the son of the first victim of yours, and I have come to take her. And if I have to kill you to do it, so be it. I will reunite you with your mother in hell. And
Dun,
so
dun,
that's
dun.
what sets up. And so you got the final guy and the big bad, and you don't know who to root for.
So you have, yeah, that would be really good
Yeah,
because
there's your
there's a lot
build
of
up
ties there.
to a badass fight at the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because
And
there's
on
always
one
the
hand,
risk that
yes,
they
you
don't.
could have Jason die, and then he automatically takes his mother away to give her the proper burial where he grew up. Or you could have Jason kill him, and he's laid right at the shrine right next to his mother. But I kind of like this idea. Jason figuratively disarms him, doesn't literally sever a limb or anything. And he's about to kill him, but then he looks him in the eye, and then the guy's looking up at Jason. He's like, "Do it, you son of a bitch!"
Right.
And then Jason's tempted to do it because, he insulted his mother, but he realizes that this kid is just no different than him. So he lowers it. He goes over to this shack and hands his mother's body to him.
Holy
So it's
shit.
like, so he
Kind of
sees
like amends. He sees himself in that kid.
exactly. And
Mhm.
Jason realizes there has to be a line to draw. There has to be a way to end this without having to kill. So he lets
That's a
this
good.
kid who is so much like him go with his mother. How
I
about
like
that?
that ending. I like
You
that
like
one.
that? That's a
Yeah,
better ending?
I think so because there's more to. There's a hell of a lot more depth to that instead of it just being this, unfeeling, unemotional murderer.
Yeah, because
You know.
remember, at the end of the day, he started off as just a deformed kid who drowned tragically because I don't know if you want to consider this canon from the Freddy versus Jason movie, but the idea that he was bullied and pushed into that water kind of makes sense.
Right.
I mean,
And I,
even back in the 50s, there could have been kids who would pick on a deformed kid.
oh, all the time. I mean, that sounds awful, but that was the state of how people treat anyone that's different.
And
It still
something
is
that
that
still
way.
goes on today.
Right. Yep. I mean, kids will stare, and children by nature, even, it's about how you raise your children, obviously,
Yeah.
but
And not all of them
they're
mean to be cruel. It's just they're young and don't understand.
right. They're not aware of what they do. They're just being kids and a bit of a jackass, but that's part of the age. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's okay. They should still be reprimanded and,
Hmm.
put disciplined for that. But I think there's still a lot of elements to that in our current society of stigmas that are put onto people that are different, even,
Yeah. I mean, just
now.
because they're different doesn't mean they're bad.
No, but it's still that fear. It can be a lot of types of different, that
Yeah.
people are fearful of.
And
It can
that's the
be
interesting
ideas
thing,
or
because in Final Fantasy, a lot of ladies can look at Sephiroth and say, he's hot, he's pretty, but
right.
he's also a psychotic, genocidal madman.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the whole don't judge a book by its cover deal.
He's perfect.
Well, it's like And not to pull into religion, but it's true. Lucifer, right? The whole idea, concept of Lucifer is that, oh, well, how did he lure all the angels out of heaven? Well, he was charismatic. He spoke
Mm-hmm.
passionately. He connected to people and they were like kind of disarmed. So when
Mm-hmm.
he was luring the angels, he was telling them what they wanted to hear to he was, because they had free will, he was able to tap into that, right?
Yeah.
But because of his charisma or how he portrayed it and emotionally manipulated, that's how he was able to do that. So there's definitely that aspect, that
Mm-hmm.
goes on with what evil looks like. Evil
Yeah.
isn't always going to be, oh, what was it? It was the devil's advocate. There's a lot of films, where you have this very um maybe menacing character, but they have charisma and they're able
Yeah.
to lure people in. And that's what people don't, I think that's one thing in society we don't really understand is evil is not gonna always be fire and brimstone from the beginning, or you're not gonna see
No.
like acid dripping
Sometimes
out of the mouth.
sometimes hell can be paradise.
What is it? American Psycho with Christian Bale?
I
Uh
never saw American Psycho,
oh my
but I do
God.
know that I do remember watching Demolition Man that,
Yeah,
that 2032 it looked like a paradise.
right.
But really to the average person like us, it would be considered hell.
Oh yeah, because everything is monitored, everything, your language to, how much, what was it like, using the bathroom and sex, all those things were regulated heavily, quote, to stop disease and illness.
Yeah, it's like stopping being human and just being a freaking machine.
Right. And that's not logical. It's not, they make things, I think the issue and the misconception is like what, just like in Demolition Man, which is a great movie. I've watched that movie so
Oh
much.
yeah.
um, is that if by taking away those things somehow you're going to, because we always hear how the human race is insustainable.
Hmm.
Oh, we're all going to die and this is the only way we'll survive. I would us rather meet our evolutionary cycle than live as machines personally.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
we can evolve without having to kill. That's the thing.
correct, there are
'Cause, I
ways
mean,
to do
look at
this.
Star Trek, the original Star Trek. It was supposed to be we evolved from our prejudices of this day and age
Right,
to a more united society that while it does still have some flaws and differences, it doesn't embrace them too much. It knows
correct.
where to draw the line.
I think what's so
And
extraordinary about it too is not only is it just our within our Earth realm, but other species of
oh yeah.
aliens, and that part was like, oh, this is way ahead of its time because
Oh
it's
yeah.
that universalist thinking and worldview, right? That
And
there are
that's
other species.
And that's another thing I do find a bit interesting about Star Trek 6, but I feel like there's something that should have been added. Everyone should know my favorite Star Trek is Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. And
Yeah,
I did
it's
like
fun.
that Dr. Gillian Taylor, a girl from the late 20th century, our time, went forward into the 23rd century, and she had to catch up on what she had missed in that passage of time.
Right,
I feel like she should have come back for 6, so that way she could be part of that meeting. Excuse me, in the beginning of the film where they were
right.
telling Kirk that he was going to be the envoy for Chancellor Gorkon.
Hmm.
Because this way, when she would hear Kirk and Admiral Cartwright say disparaging remarks about the Klingons, about how they're the alien trash of the galaxy, she, who had become from this time, can be the first to stand up and say, has IQs dropped in the last 200 years?
Right,
I seem to recall I come from a time where people said this about your ancestors. What the
right.
hell is the matter with you? Have we just
Exactly.
devolved in the matter of 5 seconds here?
And that's the thing is like humans are humans, right? And that's the thing I liked about, I still do. I love it about Star Trek is that you still have free will. You still got
Mm-hmm,
humans being humans. You're still going to have a good and evil going on regardless, right? Because
mm-hmm,
that's just the nature of how every species has something, I believe,
mm-hmm.
that there is something sinister to it or something that has an ulterior motive to a point, depending on how constructive that is
Yeah.
for them. It just depends on their point of perspective. But I think that's what's so amazing about it is that even though with Star Trek there was all, like you said, this advancement of accepting all the, not just all the differences, just all the differences, and the fact that they were able to eliminate a lot of different types of like illnesses and
Mm-hmm.
recoveries. Like oh gosh, was this in the, yeah, I think it was in I think it was in 4
Yeah.
when Bones was in the hospital,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that sticks out so,
Hemodialysis. My God,
Oh,
what is this? The Dark Ages?
right, exactly. He gets
I
all
love that.
angry. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just that reminder from, that they had already taken care of forms of cancer and different
Mhm.
treatments. And then the part like later
Yeah,
on,
granted, new ones came about. That's why he lost
right,
his dad. But
right.
still, it definitely grew past the ones we are dealing with.
And that was like a kind of like a glimpse in to where they came from and the advancements of the
Hmm.
future and how far along they came. It became more about quality of life
Yeah.
than it did about the monetary.
Uh-huh.
And that was great. I mean, you still have to have forms of trade and exchange, for goods or services or
Yeah.
whatever you're trying to do. But the
Yeah, because
money
that's the
would,
one thing I was always curious about. They say they have no money in the 23rd or even the 24th century. But how the heck do they, trade goods of high value in that?
it's a big question because it depends on
I
what the
mean,
value is and
yeah,
like
because I mean,
who you're.
they say they have no money, but do they have? But I'm assuming because my stepdad is saying maybe Federation credits, like with the
Yes.
Republic from Star Wars, but then that technically still counts as currency, and
Mhm.
so that's where I'm a little trying to figure it out. It's like conflicting, you know?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. It's Dogecoin. It's the
Yeah,
oh man. But yeah,
Fedcoin.
They all
yeah.
look like subway tokens to me.
They're Peter Piper pizza tokens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true though. I mean, it's if they're doing some type of trade, usually it's for like minerals or resources, right? That's what we've seen.
Hmm.
But there's obviously some type of creditation, like they're given credit or allowances or maybe access to something that they otherwise wouldn't have had access to. But it's not as, but the healthcare, that alone, right? It's not a monetary thing.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot because I was like, that
But
scene
there
was
is
hilarious.
occasionally still the ambitions because I remember in Star Trek 2, when David was like working on the Genesis torpedo, he didn't want Starfleet anywhere near his project because he even though it was the 23rd century, he still viewed it kind of like we tend to these days. The scientists are nothing but pawns for the military. So
Yeah, because he saw that they're, I think, because there's a lot of spin-off
yeah,
stories and
he had
things
a
about.
good vision. He was afraid the military of Starfleet would try to weaponize it.
Correct,
And he
exactly.
didn't
Because
want that.
and then that's it. Because he still knew that humans are corrupt and they can be corruptible or utilize technology for, sinister reasons. And some technology is not meant to be used for that. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like, like the same arguments we're dealing with now with the weaponization of space,
Yeah.
right? Those are huge. I mean, is anybody really happy about that? But there was a recent article that came out and is very like Armageddon,
Oh wow.
um, because they have a space missile defense system that they want to try out on I think it's an asteroid or a meteor. Might be an asteroid, but it's way out. This is an actual real article, and they're talking about it's something that it could become a threat to Earth, but it's going to take it almost a year for this missile to hit this
Mhm.
target in
Wow.
space. And it's very Armageddon. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's like, but the fact that we kind of got the jump on it is like probably a good thing, right?
right, exactly.
Well,
So
that's not bad.
but
Let's just
NASA's
hope that the debris doesn't become as bad as the actual asteroid.
right, kind of like a deep impact flashback there
Yeah.
from
Well,
that
actually, it was
movie.
more like a theory of what I thought the Geostigma virus was in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. That was like a movie sequel to the original video game. I thought the Geostigma was there was this giant meteor ball of flame conjured by black magic. Basically, Sephiroth used the magic to summon a giant meteor from the furthest reaches of space and pulled it toward the planet, hoping to
Oh,
cause great impact, an
God.
impact that would cause the planet's energy to try and uh, heal the crater that would form. And he put himself at the center of that crater after the fact, so that way he can absorb all that energy to become like a god.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, um, when the good people of the planet summoned the right magic to destroy Meteor, which ended the story, the second installment, the movie, it kind of dealt with like the after effects. It was set 2 years later.
Right.
Basically, there was this disease, this virus called Stigma going around that was making people sick, and they were dying because of it. And there were theories. My theory for the longest time, I think they now stated what it really was, but my original theory was Meteor was destroyed, but its effects are still felt because it breached the atmosphere and was close to impact. The energy around it, and the fact that the asteroid was alien, it spread the virus all over the planet. So that way, when it shattered, the small minerals of that meteor was like spread across the planet, and that's what's causing the disease.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
No, I think that's an accurate one, because they've found, when even here on Earth, right, where we have had, let's say, asteroids and meteors come through, they have found, things on some of these, from either the gases that were released or within the actual rocks that were scattered.
Because that's another thing too about zombie films. The original Romero films, basically a satellite or even an asteroid that from Venus had spores, and that's the result of the zombie outbreak.
Kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Kinda. I know that the guy who made Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman, he like teased about that, but that tease was obviously a reference to classic Romero.
Right.
Yeah. Personally, I feel like the walkers of Walking Dead are, the result of Ash misreading the Necronomicon again.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, honestly, like, we don't, when it comes to space, we really don't. Everything is based on a hypothesis. So it kind of leaves the door open, because even black
aliens
holes,
and magic have something in common. We don't know the full limits.
Right.
That's why they're considered. That's one of the reasons why actually, for my one story, I have my own Superman. I actually like Marvel's original attempt at doing their own version of Superman called The Sentry. Right. Not the classic one where he's like this buff guy with long blonde hair and a yellow and blue suit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that look, but I prefer the story of the Sentry from the original limited series that he debuted in. Right. Basically, he's the world's greatest hero, but the problem is nobody remembers him. Only he knows that he's the greatest hero in the world, yet everyone else doesn't know. And then he's going around telling people about how he is the greatest hero. They're like, huh? But then as soon as threats start coming about and he starts using his powers to save people, they see him as the hero, and then slowly their memory of him comes back to them. And it's revealed that he actually took part in some pivotal moments in each of the main heroes' careers. Like, I think Peter Parker got some big award for taking a picture of the Sentry. The Hulk befriended the Sentry, and it was the Sentry that convinced Angel of the X-Men to be more daring and not be afraid to spread his wings. That's how he, became less afraid of falling when he decided to fly. So it's like this guy actually had an impact on each of the heroes in like the early days of their careers, but they just don't seem to remember him now. And then it's revealed why they don't remember him. It turns out his arch nemesis is connected to him. His arch nemesis, I think it's the Void, is empowered by everyone's knowledge of him and his celebrity status. So because he is such an iconic hero that everybody knows, the more popular he gets, the more powerful the Void gets. So in order to defeat, he tried to fight the Void, but he couldn't defeat it. There was only one way he could defeat the Void. He and Reed Richards, and I think Hank Pym and Tony Stark, I don't know who. I know Reed Richards was involved. They created a device that would create a ripple of a memory wipe of everyone's knowledge of the Sentry. And that lack of memory of the Sentry resulted in the depowering of the Void. And then so they have to do it again. And then it's like a endless sad cycle of every time he goes around trying to remember who he is, they have to erase his memory and everyone's memory of him all over again. It's like a tragic take on the Superman.
Right. Because it just is a repeated cycle
Yeah.
of being completely forgotten.
Yeah. It's like, even though you are this great person, your greatness endangers everyone.
Right.
So it's kind of sad. And
It is.
because of that, I decided for my own Superman, I call him Saucer Man. Because
That would work.
like Saucer Men from Mars, and original
Right.
Superman was like an alien. So yeah, my Saucer Man, he's like initially he was like this alien character like Superman, but his origin story is actually the death of Superman. The death,
Interesting.
it results in him the cosmic energies, because like I said, alien and magic are similar yet different. They're
Right.
so I combine the two. Cosmic energy is on one hand magic, but it's also alien. So cosmic energy causes the spirit of Saucer Man to reincarnate into a human.
That's interesting. So he
Yeah.
develops into it from an alien form. So would he, and I know this sounds cheesy, but how many of the non-human traits will he retain even if he turns to human?
That's an interesting question, because the inspiration for this version of my Superman comes from Sailor Moon. Because
Okay.
when I look at, I know I've seen the original Deke dub, and now I've lately seen the original animated dub version, the Japanese version. Originally the first season, I think the whole Queen Beryl arc, it ended with Sailor Moon destroying Queen Beryl, but she got memory wiped. But
Right.
that was in the censored Deke dub, which I
Right.
know it was heavily censored, but I still like that version because it had the best music. The music in
Yeah.
all the other dubs is crap, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's
Too
older.
generic.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, in the original Japanese version, she didn't like destroy Queen Beryl and get memory wiped. She died along with
Yes.
the Sailor Scouts. They all died, but then they were briefly reincarnated after destroying Queen Beryl.
Correct.
But even though they were reincarnated, they still looked the same.
Right.
And,
It was
and,
just a
and this
new version.
is like the second time they've been reincarnated, because they originally died when the Moon Kingdom died, and they were
Right.
reincarnated on Earth. And so that's always been the weird thing about me, is like, now that Serena or Usagi is reincarnated on Earth, but even though she has her memories as the Moon Princess, she also has lived a life on Earth with this different family, different parents, a younger brother. How does one grasp two conflicting memories of two different lives at the same time?
She probably has to think, well, it's in her mind, meaning to rationalize it. Maybe that was a dream.
Yeah,
But
but at the same time, she did have like a set of parents back in the Moon Kingdom, but now here on Earth, she has a different set of parents. How does she, come to grips with that?
I would imagine how she would come to grips with that is that kind of like this. It's like when someone passes away in our lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always a sense, like depending on belief systems,
Mm-hmm.
some people believe that they go to heaven and they await you there.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, I wonder if that's how she rationalizes it is, well, they're separate from me and I will see them again. It's just not going to be right now. I have to live a
Yeah.
cycle. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like I have to go through this hurdle of being in a human body, going through a human existence so I could have stability. They love me enough to let me have that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like maybe the rationalization is, I'm just going to live this path. These are my adopted parents who care and love and will caretake for me on behalf of these other people,
Yeah.
my actual parents. So
Even
there's
though
a
her
way of
body was,
rationalizing it.
body was born from these new parents, she, in
Right.
a way, she would also see them as sort of adopted. But at the same time, maybe she sees them as much her parents as her original parents as well. So,
I think with the reincarnation, it's like I'm accepting of that idea,
yeah,
and I think in Asian culture they are too, obviously,
yeah,
because different religions and religious beliefs that we've lived once before or prior to.
yeah,
So it's easier for that understanding, right, to be like, oh, yeah, that's
yeah.
possible.
In
You
my
know,
series that I'm writing, it's some people are forced to go through a cycle, but others do die and either go to heaven or to hell. but not everyone does. Some have to
Right.
stay a little longer, but there's a reason for that. And for one of my characters, my one character, the Blue Shogun, because he descends from a dragon, the dragon, he would have gone to heaven if he did not procreate with a human. See, because he was able to shapeshift, he transformed into a human so that he can be with this human. And because they had a child together, the child was human physically, but it possessed the dragon's magic.
Right.
And so that child, and by extension, their children and their children after them, created an anchor for him in this world. So his bloodline is his anchor in this world. So
kind of like a unique form of purgatory without it necessarily being purgatory.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that's kind of, I mean, it matches up with like everyone is connected.
Yeah, like he's still in the spirit world, but because he has blood relatives carrying his magic in this world, that allows him to be able to come back over and visit.
Like, it kind of reminds me very vaguely, though, of the recent Mortal Kombat that they did. Did you see it?
I did not. Actually, I think, yeah, we did see it. My stepdad and I did see it. We sat down and watched it. It wasn't a bad movie.
It wasn't bad.
But I will admit it is flawed in certain areas, and in certain respects, the original was better.
Yeah. Oh, I liked it a lot. I liked it more, and they had a lot of seasoned, Asian actors that I hadn't seen in like a while. So I was like, oh, hey,
And I don't hate Cole, but I do feel that I know his power literally was plot armor.
Yeah.
And I feel like they really could have just given that to Johnny Cage.
Yeah.
I mean, they hinted at him at the end, but that really could have just been Johnny Cage in that role.
Yep. But the tie-in though, with the Blue Shogun and that connectiveness, it reminded me of kind of like what they did with Scorpion. Coming back, and I don't want to spoil all of it, but God, it was so good.
No, don't worry.
It was so good. I really got excited.
You've also got to edit this afterwards, so if you want to, you can edit certain parts out.
But it was really great. I like that connectedness. I like that they started with it. I wish they had grown more of that a little bit stronger. But I'm willing to. I'm cool. I liked it.
Yeah. The question is, did that connection really need him to hold the kunai, or should he have been able to summon his ancestor even without the kunai?
I think it was almost like he had to have a physical representation of it to click the brain. That's my assumption. Meaning, like once you realize you have that door open, you won't need necessarily an object as you will that connection. So once it's established, I think that he'll be able to summon that ancestor. And also the interconnectedness of ancestry. I like that idea a lot because
I mean, on one hand, like, I'm not going to get too religious.
No,
I don't follow a religion. I'm just very spiritual. On one hand, there could be a one God out there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, God created man in his image. So in a way, our creators may not necessarily be God. Our creators may very well be our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors.
Right. It could
we
be
don't
that
know
legacy.
where it all began.
Because that's a good point. Because like I was just talking to Squirrel about this, is about the idea of time. Like the concept of time. Most people say, well, with time travel, you're looking at a butterfly effect, right? Meaning, you crush a butterfly, great science fiction stories here, but you crush a butterfly in the past, that can affect the future, that kind of shit, right? Because it's linear. You're assuming that time is linear. But what if, because your idea is this, what if the time is omnipresent? Meaning the past is as current as the present. So what's happened? We're all kind of,
that's actually how I'm handling time travel in my Blue Shogun. It's like he has this, like, it was partially inspired by the new God of War game. The God of War had this like gemstone. He went to some what looked like the remains of a broken magic door. He holds the gem up. The door reconstructs itself. He walks through, and he's in this like world between worlds type place, similar to the Star Wars Rebels locations, world between worlds. And then he has to like follow this path to the next doorway to reach where he wants to go. Except he basically traveled that was basically a means of quick travel. But in my story, that is how time travel what I'm doing.
That's
you know,
interesting.
he creates a doorway, walks through it, and then he can see. It's similar also to X-Men, the animated series from the 90s. There was this 4-part story arc in like season 4 called Beyond Good and Evil. That was where Apocalypse was like in the axis of time, and he was capturing all the psychics so that he can use them to destroy time and that way remold time in his image.
Right.
So basically that's kind of how I would do it. He has an object to open a doorway to this gates of time, and in the gates of time there are many different doorways, and on one hand they do look linear, and then covering from what we talked about the last time we talked doing this, there is initially a dark timeline for the Blue Shogun. It's like he's able to stop the bad guys, but there's always a price. He's always losing something. And then one day the big bad devastates the whole world, and it seemed like there is no hope. But then he realizes the one thing he could have done right from the very beginning, yet he didn't do because he was afraid. He has to do it now. He has to go back to the very beginning and change his own timeline. So it's like this. Ben was like wandering the streets at night, running away from home, but just to clear his head. And then he got into a fight with some of his bullies who were targeting him. And then all of a sudden, this doorway opened up right in front of them in this town square. And then that's when the monsters from his ancestors' time come forward in time to devastate things. But the moment that he basically is supposed to be knocked out, that's when his future self from this dark timeline arrives to try and change it.
I like the idea of that because there's so many storylines. Like we had talked about this, but with time travel, there's so much stuff that you can, incorporate. And because it's still relatively unknown, that means it opens up every possibility of how those characters are going to interact, bouncing maybe back and forth at times between the past and present in order for things to have that cause and effect in the proper way. Because if, if we're going with the butterfly effect, it makes it more complicated because that's what every time travel movie has been, right? Like Back to the Future, that's more of a linear thing. But if you're talking omnipresence, that's interesting because then you have, if you're talking about those interconnections with ancestry too, I mean, that means you're interacting in a sense, whether subconsciously or consciously, you're interacting with each other at the same time without realizing it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Because the moment that like Ben first sees the big demon come through the portal, he gets knocked unconscious. And then when his future self from this dark timeline arrives to try and change it all, that's like the perfect opportunity for to start changing, because when young Ben wakes up, it's like a few weeks after the ordeal, and it's like the city's starting to turn into like a corrupted dark version of itself. And the only place he can find haven is back in time in feudal Japan. And that's where he starts training using his Japanese roots to become America's greatest hero. But when he comes back to the future, he finds it's worse. It's getting worse. And so that's why he has to fight the big bad right then and there.
Right.
But it's like, even though he defeated the big bad, there are still consequences. And that's one of the reasons why he was afraid to go back and change anything, because he didn't want to make things worse, because that's all he ever wanted to do was the right thing. But then as things kept getting worse and worse in that timeline, that's why he felt motivated to go back and actually change it this time, because he was pushed too far.
Right.
And so he goes back, tries to walking out. He's
that's the MegaJetty
church.
Have fun at church.
Where's your heathen soul, laddie?
But yeah, basically so he goes back to the moment where his younger self gets knocked unconscious, and the fight that's initially supposed to take place later on with his younger self, it happens right there in that moment upon the monster's first arrival. So it's like the fight it's like the fight is still destined to happen, but it's taking place sooner than it's supposed to. And see, the first story is supposed to have this giant black dome of energy blocking
Right.
off the particular district from the rest of the world. And it's like this almost sort of this 9/11 like event where it's the awakening of everyone that there is other things going on in the world that we're not that we've either forgotten or chosen to ignore.
Right.
And so basically this moment where he goes back to change his past, this fight results in the dome never coming up. So everyone is seeing the fight instead of the dome.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
So instead
so
of it being shielded,
yeah,
essentially, or hidden away,
yeah,
surprise.
it's like what initially took time to reveal to people is now being done right there in the moment, because the hero is now drastically changing his past, his
Right.
own timeline, hoping to create a better one. So thanks to you in our last discussion, that's that idea where doing two, a dark timeline with a tragic ending and a good brighter timeline with a better ending. I can do both.
Yeah, because you can loop them around, especially with the whole idea of,
Yeah, one leads to the other
right, like
to
it
balance
sometimes,
each other out.
right, because the last time me and MegaJetty had done this, so we had some technical difficulties the first time, which we ended up talking a long time last time too, but it was
Yeah,
mostly just breaking down storylines of like, what if we did this? What if
yeah,
this was, what about this? What do you think of this? Going back and forth on in this idea with the Blue Shogun, because there's so much you can do with this type of character, especially knowing that there's this connection, right, with that
hmm
ancestry. There's a lot you can bounce around with. Religious, that has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with this. It's more or
yeah.
less a
It
spiritual.
hard it takes ideas from the religious beliefs, but
Yeah,
it's not meant to be religious. It's meant to be spiritual, like me.
right. It's a reflection of your, yeah, how
Yeah,
you are, right?
yeah.
Because this
That's
is
truly what stories and art are really about. They're a reflection of the writers. Because I
yes,
mean, the Blue Shogun, he's technically meant to represent the best parts of me, the young idealist optimist, always
right.
hoping for the best, always trying to do the best. His little sister represents my more selfish troublemaking tendencies.
That's the thing about, well, yeah, when you're writing, it's, sometimes it's like I've had to redo entire stories because I'm like, I don't like
Yeah,
how it,
put a little bit of yourself into each of your characters.
right.
And there is this one character that I did for a long time have a name for, but now I had to change that particular one. They're a supporting character, but they are an important supporting character. Um, you know how Batman has his own Jim Gordon and all that,
Right,
and Goliath and the Gargoyles had Elisa Maza. Well,
right.
I needed my own detective character, and I decided to make it female like Elisa Maza.
Hmm.
And but yeah, she's like because of the Blue Shogun, I wanted to make the Blue Shogun interesting, fantasy like, but also somewhat grounded in some realism. I
Right.
set it in Los Angeles because most of every superhero is set in like either New York City or a city inspired by New York, like
It's
Metropolis
true.
or Gotham. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do a version of Los Angeles. But I had these ideas of how I wanted to design buildings and architectures to look a certain style that you don't see in Los Angeles. So I then remembered there was an earthquake in Demolition Man, and it's been known to be written in several other works. A great quake devastates California, resulting in changes. So
Yep.
I took that idea. Basically, there was a great quake in California, devastated most of the major cities, including LA,
Hmm.
and the government, our government, it tried to rebuild, but it just didn't have enough funding and or not enough manpower. So then in comes a Japanese corporation to add funds and workers. And because of that, there's an increase in the Japanese population and the Japanese American population in Los Angeles.
And that's
And
very possible for
and
sure.
so, and because they helped with the repairs, they actually get their own district. There actually is a little Tokyo in Los Angeles as well as in New York,
Hmm.
but it's really a small district, like maybe 4 or 5 blocks at least. But
Yeah.
because of this increase of the population, I've created a whole new district. It's like not just a few blocks. It's like an entire, like a chunk of Los Angeles. I
It's almost
call
like
it,
a town within a city.
yeah, yeah, like a borough of sorts.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I call it a Little Psychio because originally back in Japan, Tokyo translated as East Capital, and Kyoto used to be called Psychio, which meant West Capital. So, since there's a
That'd be
little
cool.
Tokyo, I now have a little Psychio.
That's cool. Because
Yeah.
once again, when you start dipping into the history and then trying, basically quote westernizing, bringing it to the United States and putting it into that setting, especially
Mhm.
in a place where, you know, San Francisco had that major quake. They had to rebuild it burned most of San Francisco down. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
you know, so these things are, once again, it all adds up historically to what the Blue Shogun's doing. It's drawing on the past, building the story towards the
Hmm.
future, but also showing that history, it's almost once again, it's an omnipresence of what we're living in.
Hmm.
So the past is just as present as we are in the future right now. So
Yeah.
it means everything is kind of following this circulation of living in. There was this really interesting theory, and I heard it recently, and this guy was explaining he didn't believe in, like, let's say, the Big Bang theory, right?
Hmm.
What he believed was is that everyone, that we are constantly, based on the universe, we're constantly being destroyed and rebuilt, and it's happening so quickly we don't even realize it.
Wow.
I was like, what? So it's a deep thought, but if you were writing a story like that where there is a constant rebirth process, so there's destruction and rebirth so quickly that we can't even catch it, this kind of brings in the whole idea of time and how time works, because
Mm.
we like to think time is linear. Most people do. But
Yeah.
if you believe it's omnipresent and it's the past is just as present as the future is, then it makes sense why there was things like that mere simple idea of being destroyed as quickly and like just like a blink of an eye, less than a millisecond. You don't even know that you're being reconstructed after you've been destroyed. Yeah, I know. I was like, okay, like
Uh,
I failed science. It's cool.
and as my stepdad would say if he were still here, and the education of Jeffrey Turner
Yeah.
continues.
Oh man, but it's a cool thought because I was like, well, so that means that if time doesn't quote exist in our traditional human brain, that we've
Yeah.
decided time works.
And that's one of the reasons why I like the Terminator, because it wasn't humans who built the time travel, it was the machines. The
Right.
artificial intelligence got so intelligent, they figured out time travel in a way we couldn't.
If anything, that should be a huge red flag to anybody talking about AI and wanting robots, doing all this stuff. It's like, do I think that there's always that potential for this kind of like, T1000 moment? Yes.
Yeah.
There's always potential because if humans were the ones that created it and we're flawed, things can happen for better or for worse, right? Whether
Yeah.
that's a robotic car, like the self-driving vehicles that keep hitting trees,
And
Elon.
that and since we're getting into Terminator again, that's one of the things I liked about Terminator 2's T1000. I actually have the novels for based on the first two films by Randall Frakes and William Wisher, who were also two guys who were friends of Cameron, and also William Wisher Jr. He actually was in both films. You remember in the first Terminator when Reese got Sarah out of the nightclub Tech Noir, and then the Terminator got knocked off the car? There was this
Yes.
police car called 1L19, and he was like reporting the Reese's car, but then the Terminator got up, smacked him against his car, and then threw him aside, and then stole his car and shotgun.
Right.
That officer 1L19, he returns in the Terminator 2 Judgment Day. When Arnie gets thrown through that window at the mall, he was the guy with the camera.
Interesting.
And guess what? That is William Wisher Jr., friend of Cameron and partial writer of the Terminator.
Oh, that's cool. I
Yeah,
had no
and
idea.
Randall Frakes is also a partial writer as well, because he was also a friend of Cameron as well. So yeah, the Frakes and Wisher novelizations of the film, the first two films, they state in Terminator 2, the T1000 was actually so advanced, Skynet feared it because it was that unpredictable. That's the reason why in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the special edition, when John asked if can you learn stuff that you haven't been programmed with so you can be more human instead of such a dork all the time. In the original theatrical, he said, my CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer. The more contact I have with humans, the more I learn. But in the special edition, he says it's a learning computer, but Skynet presets the switch to read only when we're sent out alone. And then Sarah asks, doesn't want you to do too much thinking, huh? No. And so, yeah, basically Skynet, it's aware enough of its own intelligence that it fears its own machines turning on it.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, it's like Skynet really secretly is just as human as we are, even though it's trying to destroy us. It's as human as us.
It's as self-aware.
Yeah. So self-aware that it's now behaving like us. And so
that's spooky.
Yeah.
Because then you start to question, like, what else has it done proactively or not so proactively to either protect itself?
Because remember, when Skynet launched Judgment Day on us, it was reacting in self-defense because when humanity noticed that it was refusing to obey orders, they called it a glitch in the system. So they wanted to turn Skynet off, fix the glitch. Skynet saw that as a threat on its existence, so it retaliated.
That self-awareness is that's the fear factor of like AI in general, right?
And so Skynet fears even its own machines. That's why it sets its Terminators to read only when they're sent out alone. That's one of the reasons why the first Terminator in the first film wasn't quite smart. That's why it asked for the phase plasma rifle and a 40-watt range at the gun shop, because it was set to read only, not read and write.
Oh my God. It starts opening up the door to what else is missed, right?
And so that's the thing. In the novel, the T-1000 was such an advanced, complex machine that Skynet feared using it. That's why it was an advanced prototype. And that's why when, it sent the T-800 back to kill Sarah, the T-800 failed. So Skynet was desperate. It felt the human desire of desperation. It would have to be
to send something back there, but in a sense, maybe they knew, well, either way, this thing is not coming back.
Yeah.
If we can help it. Like, it's almost like they sent it out knowing, okay, this is some shit. We're going to send this guy out there, knowing, though.
For the best.
Yeah, have a good time, guy. Close the door. Lock the door. Don't let him back. Like, it's almost like they knew.
That's the thing. If the T-1000, it could have easily, at any moment, chosen not to carry out its mission to kill John Connor.
Right.
But for the sake of the story, it continued to do so.
It would have been it would have been a twist of story if he had done that, meaning made a choice.
Or heck, it would have been what would have been more interesting is you do the reversal. They sent another Arnie bot, but when John was about to send another soldier, the T-1000 walks up to him and says, "Send me instead, because I can stand up to this Terminator." And then the T-1000 is revealed to have sided with John Connor even before it's sent back. And then, therefore, you have a T-1000 protecting John while the T-800 is trying to kill him.
That would have been interesting.
I mean, I know that a lot of people at first thought that the Robert Patrick character was supposed to be human, those who weren't spoiled by the trailers.
Right.
But, they thought he was another human soldier sent back to protect John, and Arnie was the bad guy again. But, you got to wonder, what if that was the route taken?
Right. If originally that was what they were going to go for, and they were like, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it this other way.
Actually, Cameron initially wanted to have both the Arnie bot and the T-1000 in the first film, both of them sent to kill Sarah. And then Connor sent 2 human soldiers, but one died upon arrival because at the time displacement didn't like burn holes wherever it opened up. It actually phased, and one soldier, because it opened up like near a fire escape, one soldier was phased inside a fire escape.
Oh.
So he died like upon arrival. That left Reese all alone, having to fight 2 different machines, one more advanced than the other. So that was like a very uphill battle.
Right.
And then originally the plot was going to call for Reese and Sarah somehow capture the T-800, reprogram it, and then it's the 3 of them versus the T-1000.
That's interesting.
but limitations at the time and lack of confidence the studio had in the film prevented that.
Well,
And that's
yeah,
another thing
Terminator
too.
was a whole nother, that was a brand new thing.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. The whole they're going to try and destroy Cyberdyne to prevent the rise of Skynet and the machines, and change the future.
Right.
That was supposed to be in the first film, because if you look at the deleted scenes for the first Terminator, you'll see that they were already implying that. Because
Okay.
Sarah got the idea of wanting to rewrite the future for humanity, because she didn't want to live in fear for the rest of her life. She tried to tell this to Reese. At first, he wouldn't listen. Then there was an altercation between them, and then he broke down because she basically convinced him. That's why when they made those pipe bombs in the Tiki Motel, they weren't doing it to defend themselves against the Terminator. They were building those to destroy the factory that would become Cyberdyne.
That's crazy.
I know. That funny how a little snip here and a snip there in the editing room can retell the story.
It's almost like, in a sense, I mean, they were doing it for obviously storytelling reasons, and also what you were saying, budgeting, not confident.
Yeah.
But I mean, it ended up working out because the second one was so great.
I know. It took what the first one had and upscaled it.
Right. They totally upgraded that entire film. It was like, oh, wow.
But I will also say this. As much as I did like it and Arnie's role in it, I feel like that was the beginning of taming Arnie's Terminator, because it's like ever since after that, he just kept being, protector of someone weaker than him and all that. I mean, it's good,
he became
but at the same time, it became dull almost. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, despite its flaws, and I still have a hard time calling it canon, I still like Terminator 3 somewhat, because he starts off seemingly the good guy at first, but then when the TX does that whole, controlling him against his will, it's like he's slightly reverting back to his old roots as a killer. And I'm like, whoa, now this is getting interesting.
Right.
Because,
the more complex you make these types of characters, the better, the better storyline it is.
Don't get me wrong. I love Arnie's Terminator as a good guy, but let's also be honest. He's badass as a bad guy.
Right.
That's how he started. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like Terminator needs to go back to its horror roots. We got to get away from trying to recapture the action blockbuster of Terminator 2 and remember how this started as a slasher, or in this case, gun-toting horror from the 80s.
Right.
Because remember, the first
film.
Because the first image Cameron had was the Terminator crawling out of the fighter with a kitchen knife in its hand.
Right.
So yeah, it was like a slasher horror. And that's one of the reasons why I really gravitated more to Terminator than Friday the 13th or Halloween, because this killer, there's an explanation why he's so freaking hard to kill. Like why bullets and beheading doesn't easily destroy him, because
sci-fi horror usually
he's
has
not human, but he's not just some monster possessed by magic. He's a machine. So
and that makes it really, even more foreign and alien in a sense when it's a machine.
Yeah, and the time travel is just a means to explain the plot of the story, and that's kind of what I'm doing with my Blue Shogun. The time travel is just a tool to tell the story. It's not some convoluted, this, that nonsense like they did with Genesis.
Yeah. I'm like, I didn't even.
I will say this: Genesis was flawed, but it was still enjoyable. I will give it that.
That's fair.
And my stepdad made me watch Dark Fate. He knew what I told him, but he saw it on TV. He was like, I got to see what it's all about. And so I bared with him and watched it with him. And I will say this: good action, good chase scenes. Story is worse than trash.
Oh, God. So it was like a money grab, essentially.
Yes. And worst off, the characters' complete betrayal of who they were.
Oh, God. So they gutted the characters, too.
Yes.
Yummy. I'm like,
yeah.
Yay.
I mean, they just basically they took Sarah from Terminator 2 and made her worse than what she was.
Oh, God.
And I mean, when I look at Terminator, I will say this. I preferred Sarah in Terminator 1 because, she was meek at times, but she was already tough. That's why
Yeah.
when she tried to get out of the car and Reese stopped her, she like bit his hand. You know, she had a fire to her, but she wasn't like this cold, ruthless, unfeeling person.
No.
And that's why in Terminator 2, why I did have a bit of an issue with Sarah for most of that the first 2 acts of that movie, because, you know, she was like complete opposite of who she used to be. But I understand why, you know, she really did lose it and she was suffering, but she was trying to, you know, not give into that grief. But then when she was about to kill Miles Dyson, that's when she finally broke down and realized she needed to, you know, get over herself.
Right. So, I mean, there's a complexity that was to Sarah's character.
I know.
She, you know, that's,
and that's
I think when they go too hard, like the dark, I was like, I don't even want to deal with this, because it didn't even replicate. It basically took a million steps back. It made no sense. And I didn't like it. It's like,
and yeah, they did have a good premise with the opening. I know a lot of people didn't like the whole, spoiler alert, killing John Connor in the opening. But here's the thing. That actually is a good way to start a story if you have a good follow-up.
Correct.
That's why that's why on my Terminator lore channel, TechCom, preserving Terminator lore since 1984. There's this, I have at least 3 what if videos. The third one is unfinished. What if Reese lived? But the first one is one of my greatest ones. I mean, it's long, but it's still one of my best, because I read it. I told it like I was reading a novel, because I actually did have the novel and I was taking some lines from that novel when I spoke in it. The first one is, what if Reese failed to save Sarah? Basically, I set it up in the tech noir scene, because both Reese and the Terminator both were drawing their guns. The Terminator on Sarah, Reese on the Terminator. Well, what if the Terminator got off the first shot instead of Reese? To set it up, I had it where there was this guy, this patron that came in. He saw Reese drawing his gun, and then he recklessly tried to play hero and push the gun out of his way. And that resulted in the Terminator firing the first shot. So
that would have changed a lot.
Yeah, Sarah dies right then and there, but then Reese bats the guy away and angrily fires his gun at the Terminator. And then as he's reloading, the guy gets back up, tries to stop him again, trying to pull the gun away from him. And basically, when the Terminator gets up, he does a quick scan of Reese, knows right away that something is off. This is Kyle Reese, a guy that John Connor had in his unit. And he's a man from the future coming back to try and stop him. Even though it assassinated Sarah, it knows Reese can still hinder its mission and bring about the resistance. So it now has to shift priorities from Sarah to Reese. And then just as it pulls out its submachine gun, Reese dives behind the bar while the guy who tried to be a hero gets filled with lead for his troubles. And then basically the what if is taking the concept of the Terminator, taking Sarah out of the equation and making it about Reese and the Terminator, a grudge match. And then
I think that would have been good.
And basically it plays out almost like the original movie, just different. And then, but Reese starts to realize why the Terminator is gunning for him, that he is still a threat. And so therefore, maybe if he leads the resistance, he can ensure humanity still lives. That's why after the events of the 1984, I jump cut to the future. Reese, not all the battles went as he remembered them, but he still pushed Skynet enough to create the time displacement. But he did it for one reason, so he could go back and fix his mistake, because he didn't feel it was right that Sarah and John died. So he pushed to have the time displacement built so that way he can go back and fix a mistake that he made. And but then as he's about to go through, and by the way, there's a young Reese from that timeline beside old Reese.
Okay.
But here's the thing also, from the books, there were different types of Terminators. There were those that were connected to Skynet that were deactivated when Skynet was destroyed. And then there were independent models. So when Skynet was destroyed, the war wasn't over.
Right.
There was still a war with the machines. It's just the machines were now limited to some independent models free of Skynet's influence.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so
So
basically the independent models come into the time displacement, kill most of the soldiers, and young Reese, and now that pushes old Reese to quickly jump through the time sphere. And then his soldiers realize this is a one-way trip. So they activate their big canister bombs, destroy themselves, the Terminators, and the time displacement field to ensure no one else goes through. Reese arrives back in time just minutes before his younger self was supposed to arrive. He busts into the same place that he gets clothes from. His younger self gets clothes from, but he leaves an easy means for his younger self to get in.
right.
And therefore he is at the Tech Noir place by the time the shootout begins. He stops the guy who tries to play hero from interfering with his younger self. And that's how the events of the movie, as we know them, start playing out. You know, it's basic. This is like a mini timeline that never happened. That's my what if.
Oh man.
So yeah, basically,
I'd be up for that, because at least then it's almost like a prequel, but not. It's
exactly.
So like you could say this is like almost it isn't a separate movie. It's just another timeline of the storyline that contributed to how everything played out over the other films to kind of course correct a little,
because that's the thing. That's how I feel like Dark Fate could have been told. You know, John Connor dies, Sarah becomes leader of the resistance in this new darker future, this darker fate.
Right.
But then she goes back to that moment. It's building up to the ending where she goes back to that moment to save herself and John.
See, that would clean it up.
Exactly.
It would clean it up. See, there's ways to save some of these story, like sequels and things that don't perform well because of numerous reasons or plot holes or, development of characters or how the hell did this happen kind of thing. I think that would be great in the context of standalone, meaning not so much a standalone movie, but it would in its own sense because you're explaining everything preemptively, meaning it would add in, it would be like a sequel, but a prequel.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Or a midquel. Midquel.
Midquel's good.
Yeah.
We'll call it a midquel. We've decided that now. We took a vote, Hollywood. This is what it's called. But I think that would actually clean that up because I have heard nothing good, and I didn't even want to watch that film. There was nothing in it for me.
I just wanted to know if it was good or bad, and the moment I heard bad things about it from people I trusted, I decided, you know what, screw it, spoil me, tell me the whole damn movie.
Right.
And so, yeah, when they said they killed John Connor right off the bat, I was like, okay, is it all building up to bring him back? And then we're like, no. And I'm like, well, then fuck this movie.
Right.
That's part of my language.
No, it's true. I mean, like, when they do certain moves, it's either going to be great or the worst idea.
Yeah.
Like when they do a major character kill, either it better be something significant or meaning actually like that leads in and loops in to the story and connects it all again. Or if it doesn't do that, if that major death doesn't do something like that, then to hell with it. There's what was the point of that outside of just shocking the audience?
I actually have I have several ideas. I definitely have several ideas for how I would do different movies like Friday the 13th, Terminator especially. One idea I had for a Terminator was are you familiar with actor Dean Norris? Dean Norris.
That sounds very. Hold on, I've heard this name and I know I've seen this actor.
Have you seen the show Under the Dome?
Oh yes.
Yeah, he was the sheriff. He was the big Jim of that show.
Okay, he was on Breaking Bad. Okay. Okay, he was so he played the DEA agent Hank.
Yeah.
On Breaking Bad. Okay, that's I remember.
Here's a fun fact you might not know. He was also in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. He was the SWAT team guy who shot Miles Dyson and the one who yelled, "Fall back! Everybody out! Fall back now!"
Too late. I'm like,
yeah, because they knew he was the one that found Dyson about ready to trigger the bomb.
That's right.
So,
okay, yes.
that was
I know the
Norris.
actor.
So so my idea is this. I would pitch it first as a teaser for as a setup, like a little fan film. as like the phone book killer. I call it a Terminator story. The phone book killer.
That'd be good. You could do that with the
It
Terminator series easily.
Scene fades in, revealing a sign that reads West Highland Police Station, the same station that was shot up in the first film. That was revealed. The name was revealed in Terminator 2.
This would be good. Not just to add this on, I could imagine this type of idea being a great miniseries on like HBO Max.
Oh yes.
You know what I mean? Like a really great miniseries. So I just wanted to put that out there. They need to get in contact with MegaJetty, okay, on writing this miniseries, because I could see watching this and being interested. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
okay,
so so after it opens up to the sign of the West Highland Police Station, the camera pans to the side of the parking lot. A car pulls up, door opens, out steps Dean Norris. He's wearing like a suit, different from his days as a SWAT officer. So he enters the station. The station looks similar to the first film, but different. Like it's daytime, not nighttime, like in the first film. Right. And there's like panels and more computers and such.
Modernized a bit.
Like almost like it were set like the same station if it was still around today almost. And so you have Dean Norris walking by some young hotshot officers talking about how, hey, it's the old war dog. And, basically they think because they're young hotshot guys, they're going that old fossil needs to get with the times and all that,
Right.
And then he goes to his office to sit, and then his deputy, his I guess you could say his secretary, walks in with some surveillance footage, because he is kind of an old school detective, still has hard copy files and such. Still trying to get the hang of his new like iPhone of sorts.
Right. Trying to get up with the tech. Right.
Yeah, trying to. And then but then of course the desk sergeant comes in with some surveillance footage. He's like, this was taken an hour ago. And then I know it's not exactly your forte, but it may be something worth looking into. And then he's like looking at it, and then his expression changes. He's like, when was this taken? An hour ago. And we're only just now finding out.
Oh.
Then he marches out. Well, first he grabs it, goes to his drawer, opens it, pulls out one of his hard copy pieces of paper, and slams his drawer, goes out, and then he slams one of the bulletin boards, and then says, everyone listen up. You all claim to be such hot shots saying that I need to get with the times. Well, these times missed an old case. This man here has been on the loose since 1984. Those seats you're sitting in, there were 30 officers in this building in those seats back in 1984. 17 of those officers whose seats you sit in were killed by this man.
Right.
The phone book killer. I want him found, and I want him found an hour ago. Because now, and yeah, I know this may sound a little political. I know that back in the early 90s, the LAPD had a lot of bad heat with the whole Rodney King and O.J. Simpson debacles. Right. I would have him go make a speech where this department has a bad history, a bad rep, and this guy still being on the loose is making people doubt us even more. We need to show the people that this department still has their best interests at heart. We need to show the people we can take scumbags like this down. Now get to it. And then he goes back to his
cop
office.
Killer. Get him, boys.
And but then here's the interesting part. He gets back into his office, sits down, rewatches the footage, somehow knowing the right button to press. And then we see the footage. It shows like a grown man and a woman running, and the grown man is pulling out a gun, shooting down a dark hallway, and then turns and runs because someone's firing at him. And then it pans back to the Dean Norris. It's slowly zooming in, and then you hear fall back now.
Oh, he's having his
flashback to the Terminator 2. You see that he's the guy who noticed Miles Dyson was about to blow the switch. And then you show the scene from the corridor on the first floor. He's the one who yelled, "Get down on the floor, face down." and then we see the cops shooting at this biker looking guy, and then when you see the Terminator fire the gun, he was the first one who got the kneecap. And then he moves his hand down and he's squeezing his knee, remembering that injury. And then he's looking at and then the camera pans back to the footage again. You see black clad footsteps, feet and pants step out of the shadows of that dark corridor that the guy and the girl were shooting at. And then it pans back to Dean Norris and he's like, and then it shows another flashback, like a sort of a retcon one. He's like cradling his knee after getting shot from Terminator 2. He looks up, and then quickly the Terminator looked down and he sees the metal glints on his face before turning back to shoot the other officers. And then he's like, "What the fuck are you?" And then the camera pans up and reveals Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then you hear dun 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 dun. End fan film. That's your teaser. That's your teaser. The opening to My Terminator 3.
That would be great. Even if this was turned into a mini series of like mini stories.
Yeah.
You know, from that time that kind of tie everything together. You know, the lasting effects of when he originally came to go after Sarah and the beginning of everything.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. I mean, that's what I loved. One of the things I loved about Terminator 2 was that even though it was set 11 years after the first film, they still kept made it feel connected, because when they had that scene with the cops talking to Sarah in her prison cell, talking about these were taken by a video surveillance camera at the West Highland Police Station, 1984. Right. They killed 17 police officers that night, men with families, children. And then this is taking them all in Reseda today. And then heck, in the theatrical Terminator 2, when the T-1000 gets word that they're at Cyberdyne, the dispatcher's like, "Suspect 2, white male, fitting a description for the man wanted for the murder of police officers, 1984. So yeah, that's like, it was connecting the two movies, even though 11 years had gone by.
Right.
So,
I think that would be great.
So the idea that the first clip of this Terminator 3 is, an old officer from Terminator 2, reminding everyone of what happened in 84 and 95, is now back and on the loose again. I feel like that's what was missing from Terminator 3, because, when they had that shootout, you only saw Dr. Silverman react, but the police, they acted like they didn't know who the hell this guy was.
Right. I think that's the point, is like, if you're going after such a high profile figure, there would have been a proper debriefing. Having that many officers fall would have been huge for a department or for any law enforcement district, knowing that there was that many, quote, brothers in blue that were taken down in an event. So I think the problem is they have a lot of like poor writing of context of understanding canon. When they write some of these films. I mean, that's a recurring theme with every genre, you know.
And I know some fans can get so caught up in loving the franchise they forget about canon at times, but I am a fan, but I also appreciate canon. I mean, I may not always agree with the canon, but I still respect it.
Right. I mean, at the very least, you can flex a little bit with canon. Mm-hmm. I'm not, I don't think.
Yeah, like for example, that bit where I say, well, he's cradling his knee and looking up, and the Terminator briefly looks down at him. Mm-hmm. That's not in the Terminator 2. That would be filmed now, but still would be a nice little added touch.
Well, yeah, you're just creating a scene, you know. And when it comes to canon, I think there's a lot of people who do get like super obsessive and, almost in a negative way. They actually hurt a film from developing a storyline because they're like, well, what? It's like, listen. Canon is also like flexible.
Yeah,
so that means
it's flexible, but it needs to flow as well.
Correct. As long as it flows and it connects and makes sense, not just, well, we're going to throw this in and just run with it. That doesn't work that way because it doesn't make sense. So it just needs to make sense. You can flex a lot with canon as long as it makes sense, just like any Star Wars film, which people have had a fit about.
Yeah,
and I understand.
George may not have had everything planned out. I mean, he had several things. He knew Vader was going to be some big guy and all that, and he knew that he knew Luke was going to have a sister, but initially he didn't plan on Leia being that sister. That was
Right.
something he came up with during the making of Return of the Jedi. He just decided, you know what, let's settle it this way. Leia's the sister. And
Yeah.
not to mention, it went with the whole fact that he intended Han to be with Leia anyway, because if Leia had not been the sister of Luke, Luke still technically would not have gotten Leia, because Luke would have been more, he would have chosen to let go of his jealousy and also to stay true to his Jedi ways and
Yeah, he would have been like a
let her
monk,
go.
essentially.
It would have been sad, but because I mean, a lot of, I mean, I will say this: if you didn't know that Leia was Luke's sister, you would have wanted to see the two of them together just from the very first Star Wars film, because he came off as the main hero, and the main hero should get the girl. But in this case, it was the side character who got the best friend that got the girl.
Which is good because it fed into the efforts that they were all interconnected for a grander purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the development of Vader's character from the beginning and how that character developed his relationships and then where those relationships ended going, when obviously when you look at Empire Strikes Back and all that stuff and all the interconnectedness from Star Wars on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I liked how they developed that network of characters without breaking stereotypes of what those characters were.
Yeah.
Because prior films, yeah, the hero gets the girl, it's the same shit, different day. But in a sense, he still had a deep emotional connection to her that kept their alignment. It kept them all interconnected together.
Yeah.
So a lot of that got lost when the new series of films came out.
Yeah, and not to because I mean, let's I mean, if you look at the expanded universe, Han and Leia stuck together, and he may have been less of the smuggler that he used and the con artist he used to be, but still, he applied his roots to what he needed to apply them to. He was a general with the rebellion and an important figure in the New Republic, because his wife, his girl, was someone important, and he wanted her and wanted to stay in her life, and so he had to adjust, and he did adjust. And then when the Force Awakens comes along, I mean, at first I thought it was interesting seeing him go back to his roots as a smuggler and con man. But, I was like, was that the result of him losing his son? But then they revealed, he was like that even before the son went bad. And so
I didn't like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, if that had been the case after Ben had gone to the dark side, I would have bought it. Like, maybe their son going to the dark side drove it, even though they still loved each other, it just made it difficult for them.
Right. But the fact that they went down that route where, he's just a deadbeat dad.
Yeah, that was bullshit. That was horrible.
It's like
Han may. I will say this: I loved Han, but my favorite character was always Luke. So Han technically wasn't my favorite, but I still loved Han. And so just doing that to him was just horrible.
There was
but it got worse when they went after Luke.
Yeah, the whole thing was nothing more than just,
I mean, I understand that Harrison wanted the character to die off because he
did.
Yeah, because he was more of an indie guy.
Right. Yeah, because he did.
See what I said there? See what I did there?
Indie, wink, wink.
Yeah.
But he was like, all the more better to kill my ass off. Like he was okay with that. But,
but they could have done it better.
Right, that's the point. They could have done it better. It looked.
I mean, I did feel the emotion of that scene somewhat, but still, but it wasn't perfect.
I think with the first film, I walked in.
It's not perfect, but it could be improved.
Yeah, it was, to me, I was excited to see what they were going to do. That was my hope and expectation, because I had the old mentality of how films worked, where they actually got better as time went on.
Yeah, because sometimes the first is not as great as the second and all.
Oh my God, it was the second.
Boy, did they take it in the opposite direction there.
Oh my God, like we were in the theater. Because Eldest Squirrel and I went on opening weekend every time it came out, right? Each one of those, just to see.
Same. Almost same with me. Every time a new Star Wars movie was in theaters, it was like an event, like a
like almost like
a not just an event. It was like this, like grand opening of sorts.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the right word. I can't figure out.
No,
what
I know
it
what
is.
you mean. Like I remember the first time I ever went to an opening day
Yeah.
movie, it was for Ghostbusters 2.
The earliest I can remember is Lethal Weapon 3 in the
Oh
90s as
wow.
a kid.
Was it packed?
I don't remember that, but I know that was, I do recall that being my earliest memory of being in a theater.
Yeah. But
And I
that's
had a bad
big
habit
one.
back then of accidentally spoiling movies as a kid because I didn't know any better. I was
Right.
like, my dad said, "Don't spoil the movie for me," but then I was like, but you know,
Right.
I just rambled and I accidentally spoiled that ruined that movie for him. So
Oopsie.
I don't blame him if Lethal Weapon 3 is not his favorite because I ruined it for him.
Fair
But
enough. But
but
yeah.
I
But I
will
mean,
say this.
you know.
I will say this. Lethal Weapon 3 may not be 1 and 2, but to me it is the best.
Yeah. I mean, out of all the movies, it's the most entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've watched them all, and I was like, the third one's still, like, in my opinion, yes, it's the
Yeah,
best out of
and
the
it's
trilogy.
brighter compared to the first two.
Yeah, a little lighter in the story
Yeah.
to an extent, not as dark and
Mm-hmm.
like action oriented drama,
Yeah.
But
Because
yeah,
I mean, Riggs in the first film, he was like trying to get over the loss of his wife, and then the second one, he's succeeding in doing that, only to lose her and find out the guy he loses her to is the same guy who took his wife. So it was like, geez, this is getting depressing now.
right.
So that's why I liked Lethal Weapon 3 because it was a brighter direction they were going in,
Yeah, they made it more about
giving him more hope and less depression.
right because that was terrible. It's like God,
I will say this though, I do appreciate too because it's like things will get worse before they get better.
right. And I mean, they went the right direction with 3,
Yeah, and nothing
unlike
against
other films.
Lorna, I do kind of thought Patsy Kensit was a hotter one.
Mhm.
But that's just me.
Yeah, I know that
I did think
tracking.
Lorna was the better character though.
I think tracking back to the Star Wars thing and the
Oh yeah,
disappointment that came out of that. Um, it was bad. Like, like I said, like with Star Wars, and you go to Empire Strikes Back, which is my favorite, is Empire,
yeah,
and then Return of the Jedi. It was awesome. Like it got better with every film. Like there
yeah.
was just, I loved it.
I think Return of the Jedi is my favorite of the original trilogy because
It's a fun one.
yeah, I mean, it was the first one I do recall seeing and remembering. I then again, I do remember playing Super Star Wars, the video game, as a kid. But I think Return of the Jedi might have been the first film I saw, and I
It's
did
the
enjoy it.
popular one.
Yeah, and that's why one of the reasons why that one's the one that's more visible.
Right. Because
But
that
yeah,
was, I think that for a long time I thought it was Jedi that I liked. That went back and you know how like you do a power watch, you just go through them and watch them again.
yeah.
Empire's the one that I really loved
I will say
because that was
this:
so
I
well done.
prefer Empire for having the blue lightsaber, but I do like Return of the Jedi's Slave Leia.
Yeah, that's a favorite, fan
Yeah,
favorite.
let's be
I
honest.
think as far as like their how do you put it? The effects and the work put into, their practical
Yeah,
was
and
really well done
and
in
not to
Jedi.
mention, Luke finally got the shine as, excuse me, the central hero because in A New Hope and Empire, yeah, Luke is supposed to be the main hero, but it's like all the spotlights on Han Solo and his badassery, and that's good and all. That is
Yeah.
good. But remember, Luke is the central character. He's the one dueling Vader, not Han Solo.
I
So
think it makes it perfectly set up though for the development of the characters, meaning
yeah,
like it starts to pull them in as a team, kind of showing that even though Han, I'm taking off, I'm done with this crap, he's not really done with it because he has, there's a connection with
that he
him and
formed in
Luke.
just a short time with the characters. Yeah.
Right. And
Something
so,
that's different from what he's been used to, and he's really liking it and doesn't want to lose it.
right. And it's actually where he belongs. He just hasn't clicked
Found
into
it in
that yet.
itself. Yeah, there yet.
And then the development of the characters and that was so strong. So by the
Yeah.
time you got to Jedi, it pulled everything together and it made it more believable too.
Hmm.
That romance that was going on between Han and Leia.
Yeah, because they even, I mean, they did hint it at in a New Hope, because he's like,
Yeah.
"What do you think? You think a princess and a guy like me?" And then Luke's like, "No."
No. I was like, no,
But yeah,
not really.
still, that didn't stop Han from trying in the second film, and it turned out it worked. You know, he was rewarded for trying. You know, she said, "I love you," and he's like, "I know."
Right. And because he had done so many things at that point for
Hmm.
Luke and for her and for just the rebellion,
Yeah.
just to,
In
she
fact, that's
understood.
in fact
It,
that's when Harrison Ford actually believed Han should have died, was in the carbonite freezing.
right.
But yeah, I will say this: I'm glad he came back for Jedi. And here's the thing: I don't mind that he's not as relevant in Jedi, because to me, it's like Han had been out of commission for a year. If you go by the expanded universe telling, he needs to catch up, and also Luke succeeded in saving his life, so now he should step back and let Luke have some of the spotlight.
Right.
So that's why I feel like Jedi is my favorite, because the best friend finally decides to let his ego go and let the hero shine.
Yeah. Because I think the carbonite thing was that step of selflessness, meaning
Mm-hmm.
he knew what the repercussions were going to be. He didn't want that to happen, of course, but he knew the
It
risks
had to happen
involved.
in order to keep Leia and Chewie and 3PO safe. Yeah.
And Luke too. It was like he did a sacrifice. And so,
Yeah.
and I think that the third film was, yeah, him stepping back, like you said, and then Luke. Then now we're unpacking the rest of Luke's story,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially semi-closing that chapter in his life,
Yeah.
of development. So it's interesting. I think the whole movie series is great. It's just with the new one, it trashed it. It absolutely
Yeah.
trashed it. It was
And
not
Han and Han
anything.
actually did have some growth in Jedi that most people tend to overlook. You know, he got Leia to say "I love you" to him, but what did he feel for her? Did he reciprocate? And so that's why in that moment when she got hurt and at the bunker, and she had a gun on her, ready to save them both, he's like, "I love you." And so yeah, it's like he admits to how he really feels, and is no longer afraid to deny it.
Right. And I think that, you see all the developments in the characters, even Leia, you know, where she always kind of was feisty, but you really saw how coordinated she was on things
Yeah.
and
And that's one
aware
of
of
the
things.
reasons why I did like Jedi, because she was less feisty, more vulnerable.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like she took a step back for a bit because then it was like, okay, there's more to this. Meaning
Hmm.
she knew that whatever was going on with Luke, because her concern for her sibling was there.
Yeah, even
And
if she didn't know he was her sibling, I know
right,
she says somehow I have always known, but at the same time, if even if she didn't know, she knew there was something wrong with this guy that she also cared about as much as Han.
right. There was a connection there that was different from Han love, but not
Hmm.
the same type of love. And
Exactly.
so it comes out in the film because of everything that goes on and all the craziness. Um, but also too, just her protectiveness over Luke and her knowing that something is wrong or something is off
Yeah.
because of the force being connected and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because
So
technically
yeah,
he may be the older sibling, but still she has that maternal instinct from her mother.
right. She's more of like the emotionally mature one
In a
who's
way.
like,
But at the
yeah,
same time, that's another thing I found interesting, is that even though Luke followed the career path of his father and Leia the career path of her mother, Luke has more of their mother's personality, while Leia had more of their father's personality.
yeah,
Because Anakin, he was always the shoot first, ask questions later or never. Padme, she was the save violence as a last resort.
yeah,
Leia, she was the shoot first, ask questions later or never.
it's true.
And Luke was the more diplomatic and save violence as a last resort. At least by Jedi,
No, that's true
I think in
because
the first two films that wasn't the case, but that's how it ended up being at the end.
I think there was a lot of insecurity. Obviously, he was figuring out his path and like what he was supposed to be doing, but there was a lot of insecurity, lack of
Yeah.
experience. And then by the time we see him, even in Empire, he still has a little bit of a chip. I'm fine. It's still that I can handle this mentality, but I need to take care of I need to take
Mhm.
care of Leia. Something is wrong, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um, by the time we get to Jedi, we see this mature adult, right, doing exactly what he's meant to do, because he's there to not only rescue, Leia, but obviously Han, and reformulate their group, bring people back together again because they have to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But he also has more of a emotional understanding of what his purpose is,
Yeah.
and
And
so
because of
it's better.
Leia's
Yeah.
feistiness and her vulnerability, I always felt if Luke or Leia were to turn, either one were to turn to the dark side, I've always thought to myself, Leia would be more susceptible than Luke because,
Hmm.
because shoot first, ask questions later is the same mentality she got from her father. That would propel her because I actually made this one idea, a bit of a theory video of did Leia use the dark side to kill Jabba the Hutt? Because as we saw in the film, Ula, the green Twi'lek dancer, who was hot by the way, she was tugging on her chain, but she could not break Jabba's grip. He's this big, fat, lazy slug, yet she couldn't break his grip. And that's how she got sent down into the Rancor. But then, during the escape, during the sail barge fight, Leia, she got around, got the chain around Jabba's neck and started pulling it. But remember, this guy, he tugged Ula over the trapdoor. Why can't he tug Leia forward so that he can stop her from killing him?
Right.
So that's why my theory of she must have, even if she didn't knowingly do it, she must have subconsciously tapped into the Force, because while it may have been a fan video, there was this super powered beatdown versus crossover versus video,
Hmm.
Batman versus Darth Vader.
Right.
And when the fight started, one of the first things Batman did was throw an EMP at Vader, messing up his systems. But then he's like, "The Force will sustain me long enough." And then
Right.
Batman was like, "Right, better focused on you than me." So basically, the Force isn't just hold up your hand and you create shock waves or
Right.
electricity. You can focus the Force inward to either help keep your body healthy or increase your strength and speed. So I thought to myself, maybe Leia subconsciously did that. She unknowingly tapped into the Force to increase her physical strength, and that's why she was able to successfully strangle Jabba without him being able to pull her off of him.
That would make sense because,
And
yeah,
then
he was tugging at the chain trying to get it off his neck,
yeah,
or, and trying to pull her off. Never did work. So
yeah.
it
And
makes
then there's
sense to me. Yeah.
and then there's another theory, part of that theory. The reason why the theory video is, did she use the dark side to do it? Because like I said, if she subconsciously tapped into the Force, something she didn't even know she had or think she had, there's also the emotions that went through her mind while she was strangling him. First off, the act of killing is not the Jedi way. That's more of a Sith Darksider thing.
Right.
And then there's the fact, what would put her in that emotional state? First, let's look at her from A New Hope. She was a senator from Alderaan, but then she got captured and was held back and forced to watch her home planet get obliterated and everyone she knew and loved on it along with it. And then in Empire Strikes Back, she was forced again to watch as a man she loved got frozen in the carbonite and could possibly be killed, only for him to be taken to this crime lord. She is now has a chance to strangle this crime lord who has the people she loved in her grip. A crime lord she thinks is no worse or better than Vader or the Empire. So that anger could have been suppressed for the longest time, and now it's coming to the surface. Combine that with tapping into the Force, even subconsciously, I believe is why I think she could have used the dark side to kill Jabba the Hutt.
No, it's yeah, an accumulation of survival, fight or flight kicks in with all of this other baggage.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. But then, just like with Luke, remember when Luke cut off Vader's hand, he tapped into his anger as well. But then he pulled himself back before he went too far. Now, I feel like even though Leia was justified in what she did with Jabba, there should have been a consequence that I know that the Clone Wars animated series came many years later. Jabba the Hutt was revealed to have a son in that series. So I feel like Leia should not have gotten off scot-free for the whole strangling of Jabba, that there should have been a son of Jabba who finds out, is angry. He might not be a crime lord like his dad. For all we know, the son of Jabba could be a Jedi Hutt as well. But still, he has some issues he needs to work out with Leia in some form or other. And
Right.
therefore Leia, you could say that she gave into her anger in that moment, but then when she learned that Luke was her brother and Vader was their father,
Mhm.
that's when she starts slowly dialing back on the anger and the emotions. And then
Right.
that's why she doesn't go down the dark path. But then, like, after Return of the Jedi, they meet Rada the Hutt, son of Jabba, and she starts to realize maybe, even though she feels justified, maybe it wasn't entirely right of her to kill Jabba.
That makes sense.
Because now she's left this kid without a father,
Right. And I think retrospectively, when we look at what they could have done going forward with the new stuff, it was so far removed. Eventually, by the time we got to like the last film, it was so far removed from where it originated. It just didn't mesh, and it wasn't because people were being picky or they were being nasty, or being sexist, whatever.
No,
No,
that is just dumb filmmakers making excuses to so they don't have to admit that they made a bad movie.
right? Because in
I
the end,
remember back when Joel Schumacher made Batman and Robin. He knew not many people liked it, and he admitted, it wasn't perfect, but
yeah, he did.
he even apologized. And I will say this, I do appreciate the apology, but at the same time, as much as it may not be the best Batman movie, it really was not as bad as most movies we're getting today, because
Right.
there's two good things going for Batman and Robin for all of its flaws.
Hmm.
One, it is miles better told than most of the crap we get now.
Oh yeah.
And two, without Batman and Robin, we never would have gotten the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy.
Right. So I mean, even if with the failure, it's like, well, I'll say this, like with The Mandalorian, I love it. I know not everyone does, but I really loved it.
Yeah. Not everyone is gonna like the Mandalorian. There's this one YouTuber, Not My Star Wars, very good points on Star Wars. He believes, and I do, and I agree, only what George Lucas had a hand in making is canon.
Right.
Everything else, not the EU, not the Disney crap, none of it.
That's fair.
Now
Because even the EU is
he did have a hand somewhat in the Clone Wars, but
Mhm.
it wasn't all him. So, it's like you got to pick and choose somewhat.
And that's the thing, is like he was involved in The Mandalorian, but you know,
Mm-hmm. But was
it,
he only involved in name only?
correct. And
Yeah.
I know that that's the thing. Is like people argue back and forth. I'm like, that's fine. To me, it's about the quality of the production. I have not a
Yeah.
problem with a director or anybody else coming in and doing and writing a Star Wars film or let's say series or whatever.
Yeah.
My issue is don't insult your audience and don't insert political agenda
Where it don't
into it.
belong.
Correct. It just ruins the quality of the
Yeah.
film. It
Because
takes
that's another
away
thing too.
from it.
Now that you mentioned directors, James Cameron, his name is involved in Terminator Dark Fate. Some say that he was the one who came up with the whole "let's kill John Connor," and I don't know how much of that is true, because I don't know the full details. But I looked at the Wikipedia page for Terminator Dark Fate, its reception, and the
Right.
backlash. And a lot of people called Cameron a hypocrite because Cameron criticized the director of Alien 3 for killing the beloved characters of Aliens off in the opening. And then he himself is only for him to end up being guilty of doing the same thing in his own franchise years later.
Right.
So I don't know if it's true, if that was his idea or not, but but if it is, then yeah, he definitely deserves that little that remark about being a hypocrite. But you know,
I think there's a lot of panic in the industry where if something, oh well, that wasn't our idea, that was that guy's idea. You know what I mean? Like they play that game.
On one hand, I do want to give Cameron the benefit of the doubt because I don't know the whole story. I'm told one thing and I'm told another, and I'm trying to figure it out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that I feel like Dark Fate, even though Cameron has some involvement, it still did not connect with his vision because, first off, when they may have had the design of the HKs from his Future War, but the design of the T-800 was still that of the Terminator Genesis design, and not the original T1, T2, T3, and Salvation. Because, I mean, there was a distinct, if you look at like the torso of the Terminator in the first 4 films made, and then you look at Genesis, you know there's a difference in the design.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is like that film felt very remotely removed, like very removed from the Terminator series because they were trying to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And it didn't go
it's like
well.
the one problem with every other film after Terminator 2, it's trying to replicate Terminator 2. What about trying replicating Terminator 1? The horror.
Right.
The grounded down to earth turned into a supernatural horror.
Oh, it's because they're trying to get that blockbuster money.
Yeah, well, blockbusters started with B movies.
Right.
Because after all, B movies put the B in blockbuster.
Right.
And that's the thing. And you know how the term B movie got coined? It's known for the 3 Bs: bullets, bombs, and boobs.
Yeah, I was gonna say boobs. Boobs is in there.
Yeah.
The 80s was filled with those goodies.
I know. And that's one of the reasons why Predator became such a success. It was filmed like a B movie. And yet it became one of the best action-packed B movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's how you tell good films. Make a B movie and hope it's good enough to actually warrant more.
Right. And the truth is like with the current climate of Hollywood, getting a good B movie in there has been more difficult than it used to be in the past.
The closest B movie we got in today's climate was Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that had really bullets, bombs, and boobs, even though the boobs were covered by hands.
But still, it was there.
That's true.
And it was very successful. And I think, and it's not to say you need to have nudity in every, there's ways of doing nudity without it being true nudity. You know what I'm saying?
It could be a see-through dress.
Yes. And, there's a lot of films that didn't perform well when they came out that got a cult following and then eventually boosted up a whole franchise again, just because it followed tactful ways of placement, know, and it was at the time, maybe there's so many films that bombed and then over the years gathered a following, whereas the films that did really, really well have bombed.
Yeah.
I
mean,
it's
that's
like
the
weird.
thing. Quickly going back to Blue Shogun, that first story I'm writing, still trying to finish. And, like I said, a little rewrite here and there comes about. But now that I have a good, strong idea of where to take it, I'm telling it like you would read an anime book. Like, for example, if you get the first Inuyasha anime, it's like a series, like several chapters and story arcs in one book.
Right.
I'm kind of telling it like that, but I'm also telling it like a B movie, like a 3-act structure. Like, first act is like showing 2 different perspectives. You see Blue Shogun in feudal Japan, and you see the main character of this time period living his ordinary life, not knowing that demons and monsters exist. Whereas in the Blue Shogun's feudal Japan, he's fighting demons with his fellow samurai. And so, yeah, Act 1 is basically culminating. Act 1 ends where the 2 different realities cross.
Right.
Where feudal Japan, in fact, that's the you know how Lucas had for every Star Wars had a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away be the opening for every Star Wars film.
Right.
Well, the opening for My Blue Shogun, at least the first story, is feudal Japan has come to modern America.
Yeah. Because it'll interconnect them once again.
Yeah.
It goes to that omnipresence of time.
Yeah.
And I think
And then
that'll be
basically
huge.
Act 2 is he wakes up to this new reality where feudal Japan is starting to take over his reality.
Right.
But then in his efforts to seek haven in feudal Japan, he sees some of our modern luxuries being shared with our ancestors. So it's like the good and the bad of the culture clash.
Right.
And
Makes
so
sense.
yeah, and then basically Act 3 is Act 2 is also the training as well, training in his roots. And then Act 3 basically is culminating with trying to restore the order of things from the way it was in Act 1.
Okay.
But
So,
even if the order is restored, it's not entirely going to be the same because there is a ripple effect. There are consequences because, a lot of people got hurt, tortured, and killed during this, invasion of demons from the past that people of our time are going to be shaken up by it.
right. It's going to stick with people. It's going
Yeah.
to be lasting effects from it.
Yeah. And there will be other consequences like, the battle between the Blue Shogun and the demon responsible for it all.
Right.
It signals a beacon to every supernatural being that's been in hiding since the times of demons and monsters to come back.
Makes sense. Because
Mhm.
then, oh man, because once again, too, you're going to have all types, like you were saying, consequences with individuals, right? The
Yeah.
people themselves. So there's things that could evolve out of that population, too,
Yeah.
that have been
'Cause,
influenced in some
Yeah,
way.
because also that was the thing. One of the things I loved about Batman Begins leading into the Dark Knight, because this one rich guy becomes a vigilante because he doesn't want to see anyone else suffer like he did when he lost
Right.
his parents. But now, after saving the city once from the guy who trained him how to do it,
Right.
Gordon pointed out to him that there will be escalation. We start carrying semi-automatics, they buy automatics. We start
Right.
wearing Kevlar, they buy armor-piercing rounds. And you're wearing a mask and leaping off rooftops. And then there's this guy.
Right.
Called
There's a
himself Joker.
cause and effect.
Yeah. So yeah, basically that's what's also lacking in Hollywood, because a lot of these studios now are trying to create the next MCU, this big shared universe, expanded universe. They forget about how to start that. You need a first story that has a cause and effect leading from one to the other.
And the other thing is, too, and this is for me, it's the more frustrating part, is that they're not really permitting any new, quote unquote, new material to be brought to the table that originates from writing into the actual Hollywood
they're
circle.
just rewriting what they already have. Like,
Right.
for example, getting into comics right now, I hated that they turned Iceman gay, because I know for the longest time that despite always making ice puns, Iceman was always a hothead ladies man.
Right.
So
It kind of goes against his background story, and
yeah, and
it's
what's
like they
worse is
just don't
how.
have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So no, you finish.
No, I was gonna say it goes. My biggest issue is there's no originality. Seeing the MCU, great. I don't give a shit. Like, I am done. I have been
Yeah.
done with MCU for years, and a lot of it's because I just don't think it does. I don't care who actors or who's playing who. I don't give a shit who's dead. I don't care. You can kill everybody, and I would be fine. So, I have a disdain for it. And I've wasted time on DC. I don't know when they're going to figure out what they're doing. I don't care.
I
But
understand.
original content, however, being brought in, like, here's what's irritating. Okay, this is a petty thing, but
Okay.
okay, I read the books. Like, I'll read a lot of books first, and especially banned books, right? One of the
Yeah.
banned books is The Giver.
And
The
sometimes
film,
I don't. And sometimes when I want to read a book, but I can't either can't find it or I don't have the time, I just wiki search it, and then I follow that information, and then eventually I'll get around to finding and buying the book to read.
Right.
So,
So I mean, but the book The Giver, for example, they made it into a film with Jeff Bridges. I think Michelle Pfeiffer was in it also.
oh,
The issue about this is that from what I had someone tell me, and this was recent. Oh yeah, I read the book, and then they proceed to tell me what the fucking movie was about, which was
ah,
nothing like the book. The book
wow.
actually was way more scandalous, and it was banned because it's meant for teenagers, but it's a very dark interpretation of what would happen if this,
Ooh,
what they would do to mankind, controlled abortions. It gets into like very dark topics, right? The
ooh,
film doesn't necessarily tap on this strongly enough because the book did, because it was about how deep the control was in the population, and the
wow.
giver was being given all of the memories of times past, right? That was the
Ooh,
premise. And this young man was assigned as the new giver. He was going to take the old giver's place,
yeah,
and but he had to acquire all of the memories and actually know the truth about how their society is created, how life is, procreated.
yeah.
Everything is included. It's really a heavy book. Highly recommended read, though. It's very small. It's a short book,
Okay.
but it's written by Lois Lowry. She wrote Number the Stars, which is another popular book for children, teenagers, and it talks about the Holocaust. It's a more of like a lighter version of like Anne Frank's story, in my opinion, but it's a well written book from the perspective of a child. That's the
Okay.
point. She writes really well from that perspective of that age group. So the film is not, it is tampered with because they don't want to offend people or strike a nerve. There's always that angle to it.
So it was
So
a
they,
watered down version of the book.
yes. And it took away the originality. It took away the what do you call it? The impact of a story. And so there are very few films that do that anymore, but they're also not allowing that open door at all for original shit. They're redoing everything. It's like
Yeah.
everything. I don't want, nobody asked for, live action Powderpuff Girls. Nobody did. Um, there's a lot of films no one's asked for that they're redoing because it's a cash cow for retirement 401ks for somebody in
Yeah, I
Hollywood.
mean, if you want to do a grown-up Powerpuff Girls, that's one thing. But at least you did. But it didn't have to be live action. You could have done it animated, just like the original cartoon.
And now they're doing a Super Mario's animated movie, and things like that because they're trying to tap into this generation, okay, to market products instead of bringing original content. I can't think of anything original right now that's
Hmm.
quote new
Oh,
that,
well, that's another problem
you
too.
know,
All of Hollywood is surrounded by profiteers who don't care about real original content. That it's
new.
like they want to just do their own thing. And that's why all creative. That's one of the reasons why, from what I can gather, I mean, I'm not too familiar with Comicsgate or Gamergate or any of those, or even any of that.
Mhm.
But from what I gather, most of those groups are made up of people who do have creative ideas, creative stories. A lot of them have their own books that are already being sold on either Patreon or Amazon or wherever.
Right.
And heck, even Ethan Van Sciver, he has like Cyberfrog.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you have, a Bigfoot Bill, which is
yeah.
another creation by Earthworm Jim.
Mhm.
But anyway, all these guys have their own material.
Yeah,
I think,
it's like the true good storytellers and artists are being rejected by Hollywood, and because of that, Hollywood doesn't have a damn thing to tell anymore.
and I
If
think
they
the
had
other
just
thing,
if they actually hired these people, they'd actually be able to make themselves look good again.
well, I think here's the thing is that within Hollywood, just like you do through artist communities, whether
Hmm.
that's, the comics community or, let's say video gaming community, there's egos flying. So it's like the squeaky wheels get the grease within
Hmm.
those communities. Even the outlying rebellious communities, such as, whether that be the Comicsgate community or whoever, um, they so the egos go into play, people fight, there's internal fighting that does no justice for any
Yeah, I don't
cause.
like the infighting.
I don't care. Like in the end, I'm like, life is too short. I have real shit to deal with, and you guys can fight over your dollars and cents and acting like who has the biggest dick. I don't care.
Yeah,
But in the end, it hurts. It hurts the community long term, no matter what community that it is. Um, it's very competitive already in those fields, but
Mhm.
these industries want to make money, and if they have to sell somebody's firstborn child to get there, they're going to do it. So they're trying to sell a generation a bunch of products because they did it with the baby boomers, because but they had more leniency. They had a lot more leniency to bring in original content like Star Wars,
Mhm.
Indiana Jones, right? Um, Steven Spielberg's productions such as ET and things like that. There was more of
Yeah.
an open door in a sense for originality to come in. American Graffiti is another one of those films that were all, and this includes television shows that were all geared towards their generation, whether it's the free love, right, the 60s
Mhm.
or the 50s. They were always gearing towards that generation or their market to bring in interest, right, to the product they're
Yeah.
selling, the nostalgia. So this is something that they've done before. So here we are now. They're trying to market it towards, a little bit towards the 80s and 90s, primarily 90s,
Yeah.
and trying to pull in that interest from that to make money. But what
Yeah,
they're
because
doing is
that's the same thing with Blue Shogun. I mean, I'm trying to tell it like both a 90s anime as well as an 80s action film. So,
right. So it's like the problem is they're not allowing, like, unlike the previous generation with the boomers, where they were allowing original ideas to come in the door. We're not even really getting that. Um, it's like within a very like filtered sense that original products are coming to the forefront where people I don't give a fuck about Marvel when I know that I could be watching some amazing sci-fi trilogy, right?
mhm.
I
I
would
mean,
love
I
to
do
have a
like
sci-fi,
Marvel and DC because I grew up on both technically.
right?
Um, I just want them to be good at their storytelling. I mean, one of the things I grew up on as a kid was, X-Men the animated series.
Oh yeah, I
That was
watched it.
the first superhero that I ever got into.
I
My
love
favorite,
that series. That was the
yeah,
best
my
X-Men series. Yeah.
my favorite characters were Gambit was my first favorite X-Man. Second was Rogue. I just don't like them
Yeah.
as a couple. I feel like
My number one is Storm, second is Rogue. So yeah, I'm
ah
up there. Yeah.
okay. I like Gambit and Rogue individually. I don't like them as a couple. But
Yeah. Let me show you something really quick.
oh sure.
I got this. They came out with this. It
Oh
was a special. This is it looks just like the classic X-Men, and they were selling this. This is Storm. Barbie made
wow.
these for the 80-year.
Awesome.
It's awesome, but she looks just like. I mean, this is the Storm that I love.
Mm-hmm.
This is
That
the
looks
Storm I remember.
looks like Storm from Pride of the X-Men from that was the one-shot cartoon from the 80s that they tried to
Mhm.
do.
Yep, and she still had that look and feel to her in the series, so I was like, "Oh my god." So they came out with a bunch of these though. They had Rogue, Dark Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. It was like I wanted her though. This is the one. So Com Squirrel got me this. But yes, I
Yeah.
love X-Men is one of my favorites. I do love the old Marvel. Like as far as the
Mm-hmm.
films go, I'm done. Like
Yeah.
I watched a couple. I was like, this is bad, dude. When they put originally when they did the X-Men movies, I was not happy with their casting of Halle Berry.
Uh,
It wasn't for me. I was
my
like, no.
stepdad actually thought the perfect actress to portray Storm should have been from Star Trek 6 The Undiscovered Country, the actress that played that shapeshifter chick.
Let's see. Let's see.
When they were on Urapente, there was this chick who was a shapeshifter who shapeshifted into Kirk and fought Kirk in his form.
I'm thinking about this now. Hold on, my brain is.
That's
Mm,
okay. I'll quickly pull it up.
Yeah, I have these moments where I'm like, I remember this. And Amon, yes, I completely agree. That's the one I wanted to play Storm.
Really, Brian, my
Yes.
stepdad Brian wanted the same thing.
Yeah, she is a very strong but feminine. Like she's sexy, but she's scary. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want because that's what Storm is. She was very wise. Yes, that's Amon, and she still looks great by the way. Like
Ah,
but also another actress. There's another one that would be great. I'm trying to remember. She is a model actress. She has that same kind of look to her.
ah.
A little stronger looking. Now I'm trying to remember her name. Um,
But yeah, as like I was saying, X-Men was the first superheroes that I got into. First two favorites are Gambit and Rogue, and but the first single solo character that I got into was Spider-Man because right after X-Men the cartoon, there was Spider-Man the cartoon, and that's how I got into him. And then of course Batman came along, and I was surprised to find out that Batman, while on the same time as those other superhero shows, they're not exactly in the same universe. X-Men and Spider-Man are, but not Batman. So I became a Batman. He was the first DC hero I got into. And for the longest time, I thought Superman was this like overrated character because, you know, I was told about how in Return of the Dark Knight, he became like a government stooge. But then when Man of Steel came out, or was coming out, see, my first introduction to Superman in live action was Superman Returns. And I didn't exactly get into that film. And so it was kind of hard to follow. So then when Man of Steel came out and it was marketed as, you know, produced by the director of the Dark Knight trilogy, I was like, okay, Chris Nolan, he did good with Batman. If he's involved with Superman, then maybe he can do him good too. But then I realized I didn't know squat about Superman, so I needed to find something to learn from him. Right. I found this crossover fanfic of X-Men Evolution, second favorite X-Men show, next to the 90s. X-Men Evolution combined with Smallville. And I remembered Smallville was the name of a show that was about a young Superman. So I thought, okay, I'll look into this fanfic and learn a bit there. And then the fanfic was so interesting, it made me want to actually watch Smallville itself. Now, I will admit Smallville has flaws, but I learned more about Superman in that than I did in Superman Returns. And I now see Superman as not a government stooge. That's just how he was in one particular writer's story. He's really this good guy deep down who just wants to do the right thing and all that. Right. And then I looked into the history of Superman, and I found out he debuted before Batman even was created. So now, even though I do still enjoy Batman as the first DC hero I got into, I really am more of a fan of Superman, because if Superman had not succeeded, we probably wouldn't even have Batman. Right. And that's not just in the comics, but in the movies as well, because even though we got the 60s Batman movie first, the real gritty, good story movie Batman we got in 89 came after the Superman movies. Right. Yep. So yeah, Batman needed Superman in order to be successful. Yeah, he needed that. It's like they both complement each other very well to get where they're at. But really quick though, we're going to start wrapping up a little bit. But would you like to tell people, well, first off, I'm going to share screen here in a minute with all your channels, because you have a link tree that's going to be everything's going to be in the description, but I just want to, that way you can let people know where to find you and stuff like that. In fact, I can, if you like, I can also partially screen share my my link tree page. Oh, I have everything up right here. Okay. Well, I have everything here just in case. But this is MegaJetty's link tree. You can find all of his links here. So you have his YouTube with MJ1 Media, then TechCom, Crane Kick. TechCom is my Terminator lore channel. Crane Kick is my Cobra Kai Karate Kid channel. And Home One, it was meant to be a Star Wars lore channel, but I've kind of been slacking on. In fact, I kind of been slacking on most of my lore channels because, you know, I'm trying to make sure I can, I don't lose out on my MJ1 Media. Right. Because that's another thing too I would like to briefly touch upon is that most of my content these days are game streams, as you said last night on the Zod show. That I'm good during the daytime when I stream my games because I'm screaming in a humorous, entertaining way. And then at night I have to whisper because, you know, the game is right here in the living room. My stepdad sleeps right over there, so I have to keep it down. Right. But the thing is that those are just how I, you know, grind watch hours up, you know, and try to get new viewers and such. But when I take time to edit actual videos like my Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2 film reviews, those are the videos that I really, really want to give the people because, you know, I want to review. One of the reasons why I did get into the YouTube gig was because not just to speak my voice and my opinions, but I also wanted to cover reviews that most big time veteran YouTubers have not reviewed. Like, for example, Nostalgia Critic, he reviewed a lot of pop film, big popular films, but one Lethal Weapon was a film series that had not been reviewed by him. So I wanted
Right.
to cover the films that people like him never covered, and then as also give my own opinion on them. So
Right.
yeah, that's why, I mean, you can see right there in the playlist, that thumbnail is not the first video you will see if you click on the playlist, but if you click view full playlist, um, yeah, like the first video you'll see is the first review like video I made, which was talking about Star Trek, my love for Star Trek 4 and all that. But at the bottom is my more recent ones. I had to redo the Lethal Weapon 1 review because while the first one was good, I thought maybe if I just shrunk the footage, kind of like how we have our screens, and just show the thumbnail in the background and have the clip be small, it would be transformed enough that it wouldn't get copyright issues.
Right.
But it still got hit. But fortunately, I got rid of the claims. But it doesn't seem like these videos are really getting much traction because they don't have too many views on them. And I put a lot of hard work and effort into them. I mean, I get a lot of views on the streams and all, and that's great. But I really busted my butt for these videos, and it's like they just can't get viewed.
I think it's something to do with the way that YouTube is picking up like certain tags on the videos. Like sometimes it's not. I had to fix some errors recently on someone's channel, right? Because I was helping them go through their tags.
Yeah.
And they had someone else that was managing it before, and they were noticing the same thing. Their movie reviews were getting hit really badly. And so I went through it, and they had some of the worst tags on there that would red flag it because there's kind of like a banned, not a banned list, it's an unspoken list of unacceptable words on certain videos that, this idiot that was handling it, and I say this with love and affection, kind of, is they put on their full movie review.
Yeah.
Or full movie blah blah blah. Anything that says full movie is going to ding it.
Oh.
So take off full movie. That was one of the mistakes that he did. And there was something else that this person had done. And it was, once again, I was just going based on, the list. So that way it wouldn't, because there's so many scammers that do upload material on YouTube that will say, oh, you can watch a full free movie. And so that, for whatever reason, obvious reasons actually, why those reviews weren't getting seen or not put into the algorithm was because the system was citing it as spam or as a clickbait. So
that's bad.
it sucked. And so once we fixed that, all of a sudden the algorithm, within about a week, it was back into circulation. It was starting to pick up views. And I was like, okay, sometimes it's something as simple as words and a tag. That's how ridiculous it can be. But there's the reason for that is because like one person ruins it for everyone else. But that's something to check your tags.
Okay, well, maybe you could help me out with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And real quickly, I did notice one thing that's actually very good for making these types of videos. If you quickly click on the Lethal Weapon 2, but then hit the pause button on the video.
Sure.
As you can see, I have there are breaks in the timeline of the video.
Right.
Like
your chapters.
Yeah. Do you know how I did that? Scroll down a little and click show more.
There you go.
There. You see the numbers? I type those in the description and give certain titles. That way people can skip certain parts that they want. It's really good.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
Yeah,
and I've noticed it more and more on videos. That is a great thing to do on those types of videos, especially.
Yeah, I noticed that. I actually found out Ancient One did help give like number keys moments in some of the between two nuts you've done.
Yeah,
but because it was in the comments and not the description, those sections don't appear in like in the actual video. But yeah, if you put it in the description, it definitely helps to skip to certain points.
Yeah, it'll automatically pop it into certain areas of the video. And a lot of times, because there's so many different topics that are covered either in between two nuts or whatever, I don't have the time to go through it and be like, okay, go here, because in the end, most people like to let a video run. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people I know, at least the people that come back or people I've spoken to over time, they just like to listen. Um, if it's this live stream, even they just like to hang out and listen and maybe participate. Sometimes they don't. Um, so like I haven't done any live streaming because I'm getting prepped for my desktop,
Yeah.
so I upgraded an old one. It didn't, I had to give it to one of the small squirrels. So I was like, yay, parenting.
Ah,
So, but eventually I'll be back to doing live
yeah.
streaming again. But
Yeah.
videos are always great.
When I can get my own laptop that I can like not have to confine to either to this place, like I could either bring it to the bedroom or oh
It's all right.
yeah, that can happen.
Bingo. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
But yeah, anyways, when I can get my own laptop and not have, and this laptop is not the only one that me and my stepdad have to use together, then that'll definitely be a good day for me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but again,
Absolutely.
laptops cost money, lots of money.
Yeah. If you can
And
go, like, I got a deal. Like, I always keep an eye on like Craigslist and different sellers and buyers there. And, I bought one 3 years ago. And a lot of the stuff that's been going on is Windows update bullshit. Like, that's
mhm,
been my biggest Microsoft, I just want to say, can go to hell. Just want to say that, get it out of my system.
yeah,
Their
I'm sure
updates,
Google has its issues, but sadly, I rely on it. So,
yeah. But Microsoft for
but that
desktop,
just because I rely on them doesn't mean I'm not going to complain. I have
mhm.
the free right to complain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's part of being a consumer
Yeah,
of
heck,
a product,
heck, I'm on YouTube and Twitch. They both have problems, yet I'm still complaining. I just wish
Fair.
they'd actually listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I
So,
mean, here's the thing: when on Twitch, when I gain new followers, they stay there. But on
right.
YouTube, if a certain follower doesn't watch too much of my content, YouTube automatically unsubs them, and
Hmm.
that's not fair. How the hell am I supposed to grow if you're doing that?
Yeah,
How the hell is anyone supposed to grow if you're doing that?
because
I mean,
YouTube's
do
trying
you
to
do this?
cash they're trying to cash cow. That's really what they're doing. Oh, well, we'll make room for other subscriptions and get rid of someone even though you've subscribed to them. You know, it is what it is. Like
It's a
YouTube
ridiculous
is
thing. You don't see
YouTube's
Twitch
got to
doing
fix
that.
things. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and not to mention the watch hours is also a pain because
Oh, yeah.
even I mean, obviously I'm doing better on the subs right now, but still, even if I did hit, if say tomorrow I did hit that go beyond 1K, I still have to grind like freaking hell to build my watch hours back up.
And that's the thing is like YouTube is no longer the original OG YouTube, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
transformed this way over the last, I don't know, 10 plus
Deformed.
years. Yeah, it's completely a whole nother bracket. And because now there's more of I don't know, what do you call it? A preference by YouTube to pick bigger creators or bigger corporations
Hmm.
over the originators, which are normal creators, everyday people that started YouTube. It's
Yeah.
just been really biased, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
getting
kind of like how OnlyFans tried to get rid of the adult content.
right. You're going to lose that fan base very quickly by doing such a
Hmm.
drastic change. You guys knew what you were doing when you started OnlyFans. Um, I don't see it any different. Like right now, OnlyFans, that's the only thing that they have that's unique to them.
Hmm.
Truly. I mean, there's other services that people can go to and not have to pay,
Yeah,
for content. And
yeah,
the only thing that makes them unique in my opinion, in the market is the nudity and the
yeah,
exhibitionism in that sense. But
yeah,
everything else is not new. It's like TikTok that you pay
yeah.
for. you
Because
know.
I know that my Lethal Weapon reviews could really get a lot of views
Hmm.
because I mean my one the one live stream we had the Firewalker watch party where I first met Moira, that is still arguably my most popular if on my main channel. That I think under popular vids, that's still number one as most popular.
And that's just a watch party. That's just with a
I
group of
know.
us watching and talking about the film or reacting to segments of the film.
Yeah, even if you don't see the film itself, it's gotten like how many did it get? Let's see here. It got 7.8K views.
Oh my God.
I know. So
That's
yeah, I mean,
crazy.
and that's just one watch party with the three of us. I mean,
Hmm.
really, this I would think my reviews being shorter would just get would get more views as well. But clearly there must be something wrong either in my tags or just, YouTube is keep putting it down or whatever. I don't know.
There's something it's something very, believe me, it's going to be something very minor. It's going to be tags since there's no claims on it anymore and that's cleared up. It's going to be something to do with the stupid tags and like, um,
Tags,
it,
keywords, yeah.
yep, yep, absolutely. And if
That's
I've
always
had,
been the one thing I've had an issue with is the tags because whenever I stream off the PlayStation Network and not the Streamlabs setup that I've got,
right,
um 5 particular tags tend to show up immediately when the stream begins. It's Sony Entertainment, and then the title of the game, PS4, PSN, and all that. It's like those 5 particular tags always show up, but I have to add more, like MJ1
hmm,
Media, MegaJetty1,
there's ways to
TechCom.
go into your settings and add those,
Yeah, and
and
then
that way it automatically fills them, and then you can just add on extras that you want.
yeah, but I wonder if maybe there's some that I shouldn't be adding, and that may be holding me back. I don't know.
It's honestly, that could be it because I know that when he was, because the individual I did this helped with, all of a sudden the performance went up, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, so that was the tags. Because I told him, I said, I think this is the tagging issue because I was seeing a lot of words that would raise a red
Okay.
flag in their system. So sometimes it's something really stupid. YouTube changes things quite a bit, and we have to kind of guess as we go along.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm like working my butt off, and I mean, and right from day one since I started working on YouTube, because I technically got my YouTube account. What was it? I joined YouTube February 16th, 2010,
Hmm.
but I didn't actually start creating content until November 3rd of like 2018, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like I mostly got the account because there were certain videos that were restricted years ago. And
Right.
I thought if I had an account that verified I was above 18,
Right.
I could
Right.
watch those videos.
Hmm.
And that was all. And then I made some playlists to save videos that I liked too, so I can easily go back to watch them and not have to constantly type it in.
Right.
But now as a content creator, I think I'm forced to private those old playlists and make playlists pertaining to my own content. So
Yep.
but it's sad because there's a Star Wars playlist with tons of Star Wars content that's not my own, but I kind of wanted to leave it public because it would be a perfect library for anyone wanting Star Wars content.
Right.
But yeah, now but now that I've since I started making content, I've been learning everything as I go along. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't really get anyone to truly like help me with the like growth and all that because when I started interacting on other people's live streams, in the chats, when they had those speedy chats going by so quickly,
Oh yeah.
you wonder, is anyone really reading every chat? So that's
It's
why
hard.
occasionally I had to spam just to make sure they saw it, and or repeat my comments, and then when I'm told no spamming, please, and I'm like, okay, I understand no spamming, but how do I know you're able to see everything with it moving that damn fast? So
Right.
it was like, and then there's the whole, don't promote yourself on other people's streams and all that. I was told unless they give you permission, but these were things. These were unspoken rules that I
Right.
had to
Like
learn the hard way.
right. That's the thing is like they don't, when you're on, someone's stream, let's say you're a guest, promote your
Mhm.
stuff. Absolutely. If you're doing something, if you're not, who cares? Just promote it. There'll be an option to do that. But these are things you learn. Like I didn't, truth is like, when I was doing modding, I just like, well, let's supply all the links that people can access. Now that there's
Yeah,
link trees and stuff, it makes it so much easier. But learning how to mod and watching the chat and reading the chat and being able to address things before it becomes a bigger issue, right?
Mhm.
Because chat rooms reflect on the channel. So if something goes down in a chat room, um, you might be on the radar for a report. You know what I mean? It's like taking responsibility of your classroom, right?
Oh, okay,
you know,
that's understandable, but still, you would
but
think that in taking control of your classroom, you would point out the rules and not
mhm,
have them learn the hard way.
that's the point right there. Is that when we have new people in chat, we'll be like, listen, if you hang out in chat long enough, there's certain things that, you know, you just figure out, right? There's
Yeah.
common sense stuff. But then when it comes to promotion and stuff, like I'm always good with, especially people we know very well.
Hmm.
Like, I don't, I'm like, promote that. Sometimes I can't always connect
Yeah.
when I'm
Yeah, I
on a
mean, we
stream.
we know each other well enough now that we can help promote each other.
Right. Like, I know your material. I know your vast knowledge. I know what you're doing. Like, if it's somebody I don't know, I just, I'm
Yeah.
chill, you know. But most of the time, it's just, there's a lot of, with YouTube, there's a lot of like clashing of communities and internal, things. If as long as there's humans, there is drama. That's life.
Yeah.
But if you can just, let someone know, hey, listen, if you want to promote something, like Rob's channel is very open door like that. He's
Hmm.
very kind and
Yeah, and
gracious,
that's one of the reasons I
you
love
know.
Rob. He's awesome.
And he's a very kind and gracious person. And obviously, you know, um, everyone's experiences on YouTube have been different, meaning with
Yeah.
other people and other, you know what I mean, communities.
Yeah.
And
He
it's a
especially
rough
loved
ride.
when I sent him that GIF I made of the shaved
Oh,
bird.
yes. Yeah, MegaJetty's been working on lesser known gifts, the kind that have got overlooked from films or videos or movies, TV shows rather. But that's the thing, is like we all, you build your own communities within a community and then eventually just go, hey, this is our community now.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like, I was telling
Yeah, because
Zod about it. I was like, this is its own, we have our own little mini community and it's
yeah.
totally chill,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
I mean, some of the movies that I can mention, What's the Worst That Can Happen, starring Martin Lawrence, Danny DeVito, and Bernie Mac. There
Hmm.
was this one scene in the middle of the movie. One of my favorite scenes is called the court scene. Danny DeVito played this sort of Donald Trump-like character. This guy who was like, trying to swindle people and stay rich and all that, get his life of luxury.
Right.
Um, and this is not like this is mostly based on what most people think of Trump, I believe.
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to say what my stance on the matter is, but that's just how he was a Donald Trump-esque character.
Right.
And then Martin Lawrence was this like this fencer. He stole stuff and then fenced them. And then one night he was robbing this he was robbing this retreat house. There was a light in the window. He thought that's just an old trick by rich folk. Leave the one light on to make people think someone's home.
Right.
Turns out someone was home. He was
Right.
there with this model called Miss September, and he was trying to
Hmm.
nail her. But
Hmm.
obviously, he got caught in the theft. But before that, he had been given this ring by his girlfriend that he just met and fell
Right.
in love with. And then, excuse me, when the cops come, he's like, "You come into my house, steal my stuff, and take my ring." Huh, he thinks he's gonna walk right out of here with my ring. That was not his ring. He had never seen or had that ring before. He just saw it and thought he can just rob the thief right in front of the cops right there.
Hmm.
That's how bad he was. He
Right.
thought he was. And so that's what the whole movie, What's the Worst That Can Happen, is about. It's about Martin Lawrence trying to get this guy to give him back his ring. So he's robbing him of everything he has to get him to give his ring back. And so there was this one scene where before the courtroom, he had stolen some PAC money he was going to use to pay off these judges at the
Hmm.
Senate committee hearing. And then during the committee hearing, he the senators are open the envelopes thinking they're going to get money. They get
Right.
a note. They get a note that says, "Eat shit, love Max."
Yeah.
And then they're all. And then as he's given the statement that and with a confident smile on his face, they're giving him the look that looks could kill. And then all of a sudden he gets a phone, a call on his cell phone. He answering. He's like, guess who's shitbox?
Mm-hmm.
And basically the scene is like he's talking to him on the phone, but because he's got a wire around his head and he's not holding the phone up to him, he's like talking to Martin Lawrence. But then he's like, now my girl is getting really sick of this whole deal. You just give me back my ring and I'll give you back yours. Now nod your head because I'm watching your little ass on TV. He's like, TV? Which camera? This camera? Yeah, that camera. Now hold your head up because you got that double chin thing happening.
Oh my God.
I know. And he's like, and then here's where it gets better. He's like, well, take a good look, you boop in the asshole. Does this look like the face that gave boop away boop you? And because there is a sign language person, she's like doing.
Here's the summary.
She asked the sign language what's being said, and everyone the judges were banging the gravel, demanding order, but the audience and even the cameramen were laughing their butts off.
Oh
It was like
God.
the perfect scene. And Bernie Mackey's like the cousin or uncle of Martin Lawrence in the film. And then by the time the scene was over, he's like holding a cigar and he's like, now that's what I call entertainment. That line I would have thought should have been a GIF by now. It wasn't. So I made that line, that's what I call entertainment, a GIF recently.
Yep, it's a good gift too.
Yeah,
Like,
that
this
is
would
an
be great.
underrated scene that should have been a GIF long ago.
Absolutely. But for those though who were trying to find you, though, we'll have your link tree available so they can check out your main channel and then your canon channels,
Yeah.
the TechCom and obviously your Cobra
Yeah.
Karate
Kid, Cobra Kai, yeah.
Yep. And so
and the
do you have
cool thing about the
anything?
link tree is that it's easily accessible on the banner because if you click over to my channel, if you see the big MJ1 Media ticket on the top of the page, you'll see this little green tree-like icon with MJ1 Media link tree written next to it. You just click on that and you're there.
Yeah, it's a very accessible setup on there, so you can find all of his links.
Yeah, not just to YouTube. I have like my Twitch, I have my Twitter, I have my YouNow that I recently got thanks to Not My Star Wars. I got DeviantArt, and I haven't posted much on DeviantArt or my fanfiction.net channels.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're there if you want to know what I got into in my early years and what I could put back on there if there's a demand and all that.
Right.
But lately, I've been taking my fan fiction ideas and trying to turn them into like a edited film form. That's one of the reasons why on my TechCom channel, I got this like idea of a crossover between Resident Evil and Terminator, where because Sarah and John destroyed Cyberdyne in Terminator 2, that results in the events of Resident Evil. So it's like one came as a result of another. And so, yeah, I mean, the two videos right now aren't entirely perfect. I tried to do what I can, but given my limitations right now, I might just have to do like I do with my what ifs and just explain how the story goes. Because I really wanted to do it cinematic but it's going to be difficult.
Right.
But my fan fiction ideas I'm putting in video form now. Because, nothing against, I could write the scripts of what I intended for my fanfiction.net, but until I get around to that, I'll just stick with the video.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a lot of streams. The one you see there, MJ1 Media in your house, that's one of my recent ideas because I'm actually going to try and stream multiple games in one stream via the Streamlabs way of doing things. And those will be my MJ1 Media in your house streams. I will be doing that over on Twitch. I will do that on Twitch, and then I will re-upload it from Twitch onto YouTube into a video form to premiere.
Okay.
That first one there that you see is I was streaming Predator Hunting Grounds, and then I streamed two other games. I can't remember offhand what they were, but I streamed 3 games at once, and it actually did good. I got a lot of views for that on over on Twitch.
Yeah, there's definitely a crowd for that over there, especially because it's obviously
Yeah,
Twitch's origination is for gaming, so
yeah.
you're gonna pull interest for sure on that type.
And
But it's a good idea,
yeah, and the
especially
good
to have
news
multiple games.
and the good news on Twitch is I have officially hit 50 followers.
Oh, you're growing.
Now I just need to get a 3 average viewers on a stream. Then I will officially be made an affiliate, and I'm looking forward to that because every time I go to a channel of one of my pals on Twitch who is affiliated, they have this little point system like down in the down below the chats where like for example Dexter Trickster, who's a pal of It's a Trap Productions, he has like these like potatoes as points, and then Trap has like trap coins. So for my point system, I'm gonna call them MJ1 tickets.
Right. Here's Mega Jetty One here over on Twitch. He's at 56
Oh
followers.
wow.
I'm
But
not
yeah,
logging in right
but
now,
even
but
though I did break the 50 followers, I still got to get three average viewers, I believe. In fact, I think uh and yeah, sometimes when you go right to Twitch, the last stream you played will automatically play.
yeah,
So,
this is playing right now. I have it muted, but
yeah.
yeah, this is
Well, that's okay though because I actually have the I actually whatchamacallit on Friday the 13th I removed all the there's this little option where you can turn off copyrighted music, and
oh, mhm.
therefore you don't have to worry about being hit with claims when you stream the game.
See, that's smart. I wish they would have that option on a lot of other stuff
I
because
know it would definitely make streaming games much better.
oh yeah, because I don't know how many people I know got dinged on a playing a video game. This happened with Big Rich's channel, and then he got it fixed. It was fine, but what a stupid thing, you know? It's like I'm not stealing any of your content here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and not to mention, if because I mean, yeah, and not to mention, one of the things I always do when I dispute copyright claims in my game streams is I select the reason that I should dispute it as fair use, and then in the added details I put the music is in a video game I am streaming. It's that simple. That can't be helped.
Right.
And I know I could turn the music off, but where is the fun in that? Some of the people want the music.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
anyways, the and then but yeah, back onto the Twitch thing real quick. Yeah, I have it says 56 on my profile, but in the like background it says 55, which is weird, I think.
Now maybe it's a new subscriber. It hasn't just caught the system hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe.
And then I have 3 other things. It says stream for 8 hours. I've streamed for 13.58 hours out of 8.
Right.
And then stream on 7 different days. I was above that, but now I dropped, so I'm at 5 out of 7 days. So I got to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the one that's really the pain is average of 3 viewers, and in 13.53 out for 58 hours streamed, I got 2.65 out of 3. So yeah,
That's pretty good.
like it's good, but I'm close. But it's just like I can't maintain enough of an audience or average audience long enough to break that 3.
Right.
So if I can do that, and then all I have to do is stream 2 different more days, and then I'm officially affiliated.
Right.
So it's a bit of a challenge, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. And like I showed earlier, your Twitter account, all this stuff, all his links will be in his link tree link, which will be in the description of this video.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is go in there and have every single basically source of where you can find MegaJetty, from whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, right, Instagram. He's all over. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where you can find MegaJetty's updated content and different topics he's going to be covering and things like that. Because
Yeah.
it's like everyone's kind of right now. It's a very strange time with time in general, because people are either coming back to YouTube or meaning they took a hiatus because of COVID.
Yeah.
And that was my reason. I had squirrels to attend to.
Yeah.
Um,
And real quick, not to shamelessly self-promote, but
that's why we're here.
do please check out my film reviews, because they deserve more views than they actually got, because I
Yeah.
worked my butt off on them, yet they get fewer views than my game streams for some reason.
He really did
Yeah.
work his butt off. There's hardly any of it left.
Thank
He's
you.
just sitting on his hip
Inspector
bones.
Todd.
Thanks.
He's
Or-
my hero.
Yeah.
Character actor.
To him, Inspector Todd of Beverly Hills Cop was the best character, more so than Axel.
Wise ass.
That's
Yeah, I don't disagree, because I mean, every time he's yelling and screaming and cussing, it is entertaining.
right.
Yeah,
But hey,
like, for example, when Jeffrey, ironically enough, duped Inspector Todd to get out of the office long enough to use his phone and pass himself off so that he can keep Axel from getting into trouble. He's like running up the stairs into the office. He's like, "All right, goddammit, who tricked my ass?" No one was going to answer that.
Mhm. Dead air. Nope.
Somebody named Jeffrey.
I should have known he was going to go there.
Yes, I did.
The MegaJetty knows all.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing too. Is I remember when I first came up with MegaJetty 1, I was I didn't want to entirely put myself out there in the internet community at the
Right.
time. Everyone was making up their own names and all that, and then but when after the recent so-called Star Wars films, this pushed everyone away, and then everyone was getting on a camera and speaking their minds. Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers and that Star Wars girl, they helped me find my voice. And
Right.
so they inspired me to get on camera. I mean, my stepdad's told me about how PewDiePie made a lot of money doing the YouTube gig.
13 million a year.
13 million a year. And I'm like, yeah, that's good and all. That sounds great. It's just, I just didn't feel motivated. But then
Right.
I did feel motivated after Last Jedi. And yeah, now I'm doing it. It's competitive. It's difficult, but I'm still
is.
here.
So
If
are
you-
you
there's
saying
the truth.
You attribute your success to Ryan Johnson? Oh.
Well, here's the truth: is that there's not
I
a lot.
attribute it to the Geeks and Gamers and that Star Wars girl, because they helped me find my voice.
Yeah, I think everyone gets inspired by somebody different.
Mhm.
And the truth is that I don't really know. I think it was encouragement from other people and why I
Yeah.
came on here. It wasn't from any particular like YouTuber, just people I knew. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I can do this. And the thing is, anybody can do this. It is a lot to get on camera. It is a
Yeah.
lot to put yourself out there and
Yeah,
get
because
criticism over
Jeremy
stupid
said
shit.
himself, he is the founder of Geeks and Gamers, but he also has the tag D-Day Cobra, but he calls himself Jeremy every day. So it's like, you know what? Even though I am MegaJetty 1, I shouldn't be afraid to announce who I really am. So
Right.
that's why now whenever I do my videos, I'm like, I'm Jeffrey Turner, aka MegaJetty 1 of MJ1 Media. So
Right.
I'm not afraid anymore to say who I really am. But
Right.
I went from MegaJetty 1 to Jeffrey Turner, aka MegaJetty 1. But then I knew that it was too big of a name, so I had to shorten it. And
Right.
then when I was talking with Not My Star Wars, he helped give me tips on how to shorten my name to simple, yet everyone can remember it and all that. So
Right.
that's where MJ1 Media came from. It's like
Right.
we took MJ from MegaJetty and then the 1, and then put media after that. Initially, I was going to make it MJ1 videos, but MJ1 Media just seemed to be better,
Mhm. Now, do you have any, right? You said you have 2 projects that you're still working on right now, but do you have anything you wanted to plug on the channel specifically? So, other than your movie reviews, that's the big one.
Well, one thing I am actually gonna get, I'm gonna stream later. I'm gonna do that, MJ1 Media in your house again, but it's gonna be horror edition, Halloween horror edition.
Now, is this going to be on Twitch or are you going to do it on YouTube?
Yeah, it'll be on Twitch, and I'm gonna try and make that a recurring thing, because I don't remember if it was a Saturday that I did the first one. I'm gonna try and make it a Saturday recurring thing. And if
Yeah.
they can't do it on a Saturday, then I'll try and do it on like either a Friday or a Sunday.
Right. It's like, sticking the hardest thing is having a schedule and sticking to it because
Yeah, because I mean,
it's
you want
hard.
to do so many different things. It's trying to
Right.
keep something consistent.
And then
So
like
yeah, I'm gonna try MegaJetty MJ1 Media in your house. I'm gonna try and make that the first scheduled thing I can actually maintain.
yeah, because then it'll start to stick over time. It's just
Yeah.
consistency. That's all.
So yeah, I'll stream several different, more than one game on a stream, once a week, on one of the weekend days, mostly Saturday if possible.
Well, that'll be awesome.
And I actually do have as you know, I mentioned my what ifs, my Terminator what ifs. Lately I've been doing some other what ifs that don't pertain to like just Terminator. Like I just thought of a Predator what if, but since I don't want to take the time and energy to make another lore channel right away,
Yeah, just throw it on your main.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it on my main channel. It's a Predator what if.
Right.
This what if is what if Mac and Dylan killed the Predator in the first film? Because when I look at that scene where the two of them who had been sort of bitter to one another or hostile or untrusting of one another in the beginning, it's like they were actually coming along to be on the same page in that moment when they were trying to ambush the Predator. The Predator obviously knew they were there and was able to outsmart them, but what if, even though it knew they were there, they still got the jump on it?
Right.
So that's what I'm working on. I'm got some footage to tweak around, but I mostly got to record myself speaking how it plays out.
Right.
Because it seemed like even though it did have they did have a plan, it seemed like they still weren't entirely on the same page. Because the first thing Max said was, "You work your way down toward them. I'll work my way around back and flush him toward you. When I flush that SOB, you nail him." But it's like the moment Dylan started moving around, Mac didn't wait. He didn't stay in his spot and keep his eyes on where the Predator was. If he had, then Dylan could have informed him he was in position, and he could have kept his eyes on the Predator, allowing Mac to get in closer and take his eyes off, because Dylan will have his eye on it. So
makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing with a horror villain. You lose sight of them for just a moment, they can ambush you, whether it's supernatural or not.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to thank you though for spending time coming back, doing this again. It's getting dark in your house, so I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
it's
it did
getting
the
late."
last time, but I wanted to maintain consistency. That's why I wore the same shirt.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it. We had some technical difficulties, and it was on my end. I could hear him fine on the recording. Me,
Yeah,
I'm pretty much muted. But yeah, thank you
mean,
for coming on. People can check out MegaJetty's content. All of his links will be in the description. You're the first person I've been on camera with Between Two Nuts, so that's a first for me.
Yeah.
Everyone, please check out MegaJetty, MJ1 Media, and he has all of his links in his link tree. Thank you again very much, Jeff, for hanging out and chilling and talking. And everybody, check him out.
In my case, literally chilling.
Oh, God.
Because I got cool air coming in through the window. But you know what? I wanted to be consistent with the same look.
Absolutely. Anyway, thanks so much.
Not to mention, I tend to sweat.
All right. Have a good afternoon, and thank you, everybody, for watching.